it's Flo, and this is my impression of someone calling into Sports Talk Radio.
Yeah, this is Flo, long-time caller, first time on air. I just wanted to say that I think it is absolute hogwash not to go out there and try Progressive's Name Your Price tool. You can see all your coverage options, and options are how you get rings, championship rings, and parades of rings.
Finding options to fit your budget with the Name Your Price tool, only at Progressive.com.
You know, not for nothing, but my favorite rings have candy on them.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
What must be done is that people come together, all as one. There is a team of defenders that came to step up. We're the alive team. Sisters, brothers, hitting the streets with the agenda of raising the black family. We're not afraid to defeat our open enemy. We're the alive team. Some don't understand the way we make our moves. It's okay 'cause we don't do the things you do. Trust and believe we will always show and prove. We are the gods that come to rule.
Peace. Universal greetings. Assalamu alaikum. Look, man, this is such a high-powered show that we about to get into in conversation. We ain't spooky, but the devil is already messing with the blog talk, man. They trying to keep people off the thing. They don't want certain people to call in, so we trying to get these technical difficulties fixed. Don't trip. It's all good. We're going to get it together. Oh, my God. That's what it do. They're going to be mad at this one. They done messed around, let the Muslim gods out the gate. Out the gate.
You are They're also known as civilized people, Muslims and Muslim sons. Here is a small percentage of people who know God. And when they know God, they have a duty. And that duty is to teach what you know to those who do not know. Then, those of us who are in pursuit of that duty have 10%, the rich, the bloodsuckers of the poor, the slave makers of the poor, they hate the 5%. They have control over 85%. So they turn the 85% against the righteous teachers. This is how they've been able to kill the prophets, kill their community, because the leaders who are the bloodsuckers of the poor have control over the minds of the masses, and they feed the masses more lies about a righteous teacher, so that the righteous teacher will be persecuted by the 10%, not helped by the 85%, so that they can kill the righteous teacher. But a new thing is happening today. A new thing is happening today.
Hey, look at here, man. Peace. Once again, it is on. This is Brother Philip A. Muhammad, the great Muslim God. I said it on purpose. We was having a little technical difficulty, so y'all got to put up with me. My man Wakeel, I'm about to open up the line and get him on. I want to say peace to the universal family. Look here, man. All roads lead to DC. Jesus is going back to Jerusalem. That's what it is. I want to say before I bring on the line and bring everybody on, let me say this to everybody, man. Have y'all checked out the great God, Wesley Muhammad, out there in Oxford, you know what I'm saying, England, Europe, London, whatever, wherever it was? Man, that's dope. If y'all ain't checked out Dr. Wesley's demonstration, J Electronic and the Allah Team's demonstration out there, y'all really need to check that out because that's history. It's history. So, I thank Allah for the great gods. I want to bring everybody on so we can get this cracking. We got a high-powered show. Listen, get on your Twitter, get on your chat, get on your text message, get on Facebook right now. Tell everybody the most controversial subject in the history of the universe is about to be discussed right now. Not only is it going to be discussed, it's going to be debated. And not only is it going to be debated, the debate is going to be settled for once and for all. Is Allah, first of all, is he a man? Okay, you already know that, right? Some of us. Now, is he God? Yeah, he's God. Is he a righteous God? But more importantly, is he a righteous Muslim God? And we're going to break that down from a scientific as well as divine scriptural reference and just common sense. So if you're scared, go to church. And if you're nervous, you know what I'm saying, I don't know what to do because I ain't never been nervous before. I like to say peace to the gods. Now, I'm going to open up these lines now. I'm going to try to open up these lines for our great contributors and make it do what it do. Let's start with this. Whoever got the last four digits of 4477, I'm opening you up. Hold on. Who is you?
Peace, God. Why you acting like you don't know me no more?
Man, shit, I don't know your number by heart, God.
Why you acting like you don't know me no more, man?
Man, I don't know you, brother.
Peace to the God.
I love you, brother. Peace to the great Wesley Muhammad, man. Hey, Wesley.
Peace to the black Muslim God. What's good?
Hey, Wesley, if you wasn't a Muslim, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean by it. Even if you wasn't a Muslim, and I wasn't a Muslim, and I wasn't God, and you take this with all due respect, right? You would still be my nigga. You would still be my nigga.
That's what's up.
Because I love you like that.
That's what's up.
Me?
Well, I love you like that too. That's what's up.
It just makes it better that you God, and it make it real better that you Muslim God. So
I know.
I love you for like
who they gonna tell? We top of the totem pole, man.
Hey,
the Muslim God that's top of the totem pole. Who they gonna tell?
The haters can't do nothing but be mad. So look at all the haters because y'all got to have a team. Make sure all the haters on the you know if you a hater, don't deny it. If you a hater, call the other haters, and y'all need to get y'all cell phone. Maybe y'all can free because haters don't know how to pay their cell phone bill. So what you need to do if you a hater, the one hater, call all the other haters, and y'all can get on. Maybe share the same line and call in and let us know. Why you hating. So what else? What's the other four digits I got? I got. Let me see. I got you, Lord. Trying to see the things. Last time I've been on this blog talk, it look different than this. They got a little upgrade thing. So just give me a second, and I'm gonna figure this thing out real quick because once we get started, we ain't gonna stop. All right. So God understands.
The devil still got Wakeel blocked.
And you know it, man. For some, I don't even know why. I really know why, but I ain't gonna say why. The devil really scared of Wakeel.
Yeah, he's scared of Wakeel.
They scared of Wakeel. I think because he's such a great historian. I think that's what it is. So we're gonna figure it out.
And he's a misogynist. You know, it's a feminist takeover. So being that Wakeel is the resident misogynist of the Allah team, they really mad at him with the feminists taking over everything.
I ain't gonna touch that.
Okay.
Because
he knows
we can start a whole new show. We can do a whole new show on that. We got. Hey man, I gotta make a new flyer. I gotta do all that.
True indeed. Why does Wakeel hate women? No, Wakeel loves the ladies. Wakeel loves the ladies. And the ladies love Wakeel.
Ladies love Wakeel. LL Cool W.
LL Cool W.
Yeah, man, why does man? He love the ladies. I love the ladies, right? Hold on. Let's bring him in because I know he's mad. Really, he really ain't mad. He don't get mad for nothing. But let's bring in the Lord understanding. I believe his last 4 digits is 05 something. I'm trying to figure out what he's missing, God. Push 1 so y'all can pop up so I can see you. You got to push 1. Then we're going to get y'all in control. Again, we'll talk. There we go. So let's bring in, I'm going to bring them as they pop open.
It sounds like you hear me, God? Is that you?
Is that what you're
Yes, indeed, God.
The feminists let you through. You worked out a truce with the feminists.
Indeed, God. Look, because, I was able to log in initially. But they wouldn't let me call in the number. And I've been talking to these people and told these people to make sure they had it right and exact. And they assured me, Mr. Allah, that it would be right and exact. Then at the last minute, I'm not able to call in. I'm getting the boop. They won't let me call in. All praise due to Allah, my dear brother, Philip A. Muhammad, for covering down and being able to hop on there and manifest.
That's your badge, though, Wop. I told you to send the National Feminist Organization a goodie bag. You fronting.
Wesley.
I heard you on there slandering my good name, brother. Look, you know what the sister said? Well, indeed, God. Pardon me, God. Go ahead, God. Let's go into the business.
Let's handle the business first, right? Hey, do you have control of these switchboards? Are you pushing buttons?
I was able to, yeah, but I don't know. They kicked me out the chat, so I don't know if they'll let me stay here before they kick me out.
So right now you ain't pushing buttons. You don't see the screen or nothing, right?
I can see the screen, but I'm not pushing any buttons.
Well, who let you in?
I did. I'll push a button and let myself in.
Okay, well, see, that's what I'm tripping on. I mean, you told me you couldn't get in, man, so buttons started pushing because I didn't even let Wesley in. So I was like, for real, though, maybe the FBI really is controlling this show. We can't have that. So you was pushing buttons.
I just pushed the button. They let Allahmal is in right now, too, so, and I don't see
okay, good, because Okay.
All right, we good. Let's bring everybody in and get it cracking.
Yeah, we're in a time of war, man. We got to be sure. You feel me? So, okay, cool, man. All right. So, all right, go ahead and push them buttons, man, because I got other stuff to do.
All right, if you saw under 0505, let him in. I can't see him because they're giving me a
see, now you do want me to push buttons. See, make up your mind.
Yeah, bring the God in. 0505.
Okay.
The last 4 numbers.
4504.
No.
What?
0505, 0505.
I don't see him.
If you see him.
You got to
see him. Okay, so the God probably not on yet. Anyhow, great gods, we go ahead and manifest. Indeed, part for the delay, part for the technical issues and everything else. I say peace to the God, peace to the earth, peace to all the positive people in the universe. Again, I know our brother manifested and introduced himself, Brother Philip, in the show. Of course, we got to segue into the specific itemization of the show. And the show tonight is the Allah Team and the 5 Percenters Forum presents a special segment. Is Allah a righteous Muslim? The science of the Muslim gods. And tonight we will have our panelists and co-hosts and moderators, all of us wrapped up in one today. So it's an all-star lineup. Our panelists is Brother Dr. Wesley Muhammad, a.k.a. True Islam God Allah. We got our righteous beloved brother, strong black man, Brother Philip A. Muhammad. We got the God understanding Allah, who will be joining us shortly. We got our beloved brother, the great God, Allahmal, building with us, the OG in this nation, in the nation of Islam, and the 5 sinners. And I'm your dear beloved brother and co-host, Brother Wakeel Allah. So peace to the universal family and everybody welcome aboard.
Peace to the gods and goddesses.
Peace to the God. I just wanted to come in on that intro, great God, Brother Philip. But you were doing an excellent job, God. So you continue to build. You know, if you would like.
I was about to get carried away. You know how I do it.
Indeed, God, indeed. But you know, today the 5% Forum is a group on Facebook, and it has over 12,000 plus people on it. And it's 5% of small walks of life and all different schools of thought. And the 5% show, in and of itself, is non-denominational, if you will, as it relates to schools of thought. All schools of thought within the 5% are allowed to come on this program and build. The primary hosts and moderators, I would say maybe 50% and 60% of the moderators in total, but active on the show, maybe 90%, would be considered to be what you call a descriptive term described as the Muslim gods, right? And one of the most popular subjects as relates to this show is, you know, when we have the Muslim gods on the show, you know, and bring the brothers on because there's always plenty of questions that people have, you know. What is a Muslim god? You know, what do the Muslim gods teach? You know, what's the history of the Muslim gods within the 5 percenters in the Nation of Islam? Also, what about this controversy that some of the Muslim God Cipher have with some within a segment of the NGE Cipher school of thought? That's real hot on the internet. You always see that all of the time. And will the Muslim gods open themselves up to be questioned? Of course we will, and we always do. You know, but as we manifest and as we teach as 5 percenters, we always about the unity. So one of the things that we want to speak on toward the end is the program that we can all unite on, which is the unity of our people and what is the time and what must be done. Of course, we know that in order for us to fly, we need economics. So we want to speak a little bit on the economic blueprint. And, of course, talk about Justice for Else, 10-10-15, the anniversary of the Million Man March, because the whole world saw the beautiful, illustrious brother that you heard at the beginning of the show on Who's the 5%, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, when he spoke at the Breakfast Club and did a high-powered interview and rocked the universe with it. So now Twitter is all ablaze. Social media is all ablaze. People in their homes all ablaze. There's young people that wasn't really familiar with the minister and heard him, and now they're on fire. If you saw the situation go down in McKinney, Texas, when the young sisters and brothers was accosted and molested by the police, and then when one of the fathers of one of the daughters who was accosted by the police stood up and did a press conference and spoke at a press conference, in the end, he said, if y'all don't want, y'all can Google these names because y'all don't want these people to come. And one of the main one he mentioned is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So that's where we at with it, you know, with these airways right now. And that's the segue for us. And where do the Muslim gods all fit in? And exactly what is it? We want to speak to that today. And if those of you who have questions at some point in time in the program, we will open up the lines. You know, so you know, if you're listening via on the internet, you can call in our number to 646-595-4289. That's the call in, 646-595-4289. And once you come in the queue, just press 1 and it'll notify us, and our great brother Philip will select you and take your call on the program, you know, as time permits. For those of you who have already called in that are waiting in the queue, if you have a question at any point in time, just press 1 and it'll notify us that you have a question. And I believe the chat room is open. Brother Philip, if you can open it, you can open up the chat room for the brothers and sisters to go in the chat room. Okay, indeed. So brothers and sisters, you can go in the chat room. If you're listening through the internet, go in the chat room. You can go in there and build, say peace, build on the topics at hand. And at any point you have a question, just go ahead and ask your question within the chat room, and we'll go ahead and we'll get to it. You know, has the understanding joined us yet? Great God.
Let me see, Lord. What's his numbers again?
It's 0505.
0505. I don't see him, man.
Cipher Power.
Cipher Power. Cipher Power. I don't see him, Lord. No, he ain't there.
That's peace. Okay, that's peace. That's peace. No problem, great God.
Okay, yeah. Maybe y'all
so we can go ahead
and text him, Doc. Can you text him on the cell phone?
What he add on, he'll add on as long as you see him. But if you can see him, just go ahead and bring him on, dear God.
Okay, all right.
So, God, let's just go ahead and get started with our beloved brother, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, True Islam. You know, I think one of the things, True Islam, you've always been a subject matter expert. As we all know, the majority of us on the law team came into the knowledge of self through the 5% Nation. Right?
Indeed.
And one of the things with us on the law team, our mission statement, our first initial mission statement, the first thing that came out of our mouths, and the first thing that we wrote down is that we are here to show and prove the black man is God.
Indeed.
That is the mission statement from the Allah team.
Indeed.
And ever since I've known this great God, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, True Islam, he's been totally active, immersed, and emerged in the study, in the academic study of the black man being God. And this is one of the 5%, one of the rare 5%ers. I don't know of any other, and maybe it's the same in the Nation of Islam, but this brother has his PhD in Islamic studies and coming through the window of the 5% in the Nation of Islam, and of course the classroom of the gods, the mighty fruit of Islam. And he's the only brother that we know of that has a PhD and whose specialty and work is in the field, in the academic of the black God, showing and proving the black God science. So, God, if you don't mind, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, without further ado, God, if you could build on who and what is a Muslim God and what is the science of a Muslim God.
True indeed.
Right.
Peace to the universal family. Peace to the gods, goddesses, sons, and nerves. You know, just to add to your build, add in a key point that, you know, most of the Allah team, as you stated, came through the 5% Nation. Myself being one. And my obsession with the black God, it has consumed the last 25 years of my life. I did 4 years in undergraduate school studying the black God formally. I did 8 years in graduate school studying the black God formally. And all in between, I've been studying the black God formally. All of it began when I first heard the words, the black man is God, one fateful school day in 1990 on Morehouse campus when I was going into the cafeteria looking for a friend of mine who was a Muslim. I was an atheist. He was a Muslim. He's an Allah team brother. Now, shout out to the God, Bana Kushmir. I was going looking for that God. And I found him entangled in debate, righteous debate, with another brother, who we now know as the great God, Wakeel. I didn't know him, never seen him before at the time. But they were discussing and debating the reality of God. And I heard from Wakeel the teaching of the black man is God. And that day and that moment and those words had the impact on me that the words the white man is the devil had on Malcolm. And from that day, I have academically, intellectually obsessed, if you will, over this black God. And the God Wakeel was my enlightener. He worked me into the proper study, proper understanding of Islam, because we know everybody don't do the Islam the same. And so, you know, Wakeel Allah, my enlightener, laid the proper foundation for me as a Muslim God because of his role into this cipher and throughout the cipher. He laid the foundation for me as a Muslim God. And so in 1998, now we know, and under we'll get into some of the detailed history, but this show is Allah Righteous Muslim. The seed of it was dropped in 1998 when I published the now famous or infamous, depending on your perspective, the article, Is Allah Righteous Muslim? That was the Allah team's first academic intellectual declaration. Is Allah a righteous Muslim? I penned that degree in response to all of the critics of the Allah team and how we do our Islam, because we were Muslims. We were gods. We were Muslim gods. Now, a lot of people ask, why do we distinguish?
Come on.
Muslim gods. Why can't we just be gods? Or why can't we just be Muslims? That's a very legitimate question. It's extremely important that if we are Muslim gods, we identify as such, because there's other types of gods out there, and it's imperative that we be not confused and you be not confused as it relates to us and others. No, a God is a being of power and force, of paramount power and force. The term God itself has no moral value. I know in Christianity, in the Christian imposition of ideas, the term God has moralistic value. But linguistically, the term God, and in the history of religions, the term God doesn't have moralistic value. God is a being of paramount or high order or supreme power and force. And there's different types of gods. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said these words in 1971, Savior's Day. Said, all praises is due to Allah. Who is Allah? Allah is all of us. But we have a supreme one that we confer this name wholly upon. He is Allah the One, over all of us, supreme one. Then he goes on to say, though all of us are gods, as the book teaches you, every righteous person is a god. Every evil person is a god. We are all gods. When we say Allah, we mean every righteous Muslim on the planet. Satan is a god. Satan is a god of this world. Satan is the paramount being of power and force in this world civilization. He is a god, but he is not Allah. He is an evil God. The Muslim God is the righteous God. A Muslim is a righteous person. So when you declare yourself as a God, the question for those who know must be, well, I'm not saying that the question is what sect you claim, but the question is, what kind of God are you? Are you an evil God or are you a righteous God? That question is imperative. You introducing yourself to me as a God doesn't indicate to me whether I should befriend you or whether I should prepare to slay you. You introducing yourself to me as a God, unqualified, does not indicate whether you friend or foe to me. If you are an evil God, then you are across the battle line in this day and time. I need to know you're a righteous God. And if you're a righteous God, then you're a Muslim God. I wake up. All of us on this call are gods. We were born God. We woke up this morning as gods. Now, there's degrees of godhood. Every God ain't manifesting the same degree of godhood at the same time. There's levels to this ish, as the God, Black God Meek Mill said. There's levels to it, and everybody ain't on the same level at the same time. But whether you at the highest level or the lowest level of godhood, you still a God. So everyone on this call woke up as a God. It's their nature. We were born that. And when we retire this evening to our beds, we will retire as gods. What isn't determined is if we are going to go to bed as Muslim gods. If we spend our day doing evil, then we weren't being Muslim gods. If we spend our day as righteous persons, striving to be right of ourselves and of others, so we can lay our heads down as Muslim gods. And the distinction of the Allah team, and we just got it natural. It wasn't intellectual. This is how Wakeel got it. So that's how he gave it to me. That's how I gave it to my students there in Allah's garden. We did our godhood as righteous Muslims. Now, everyone who comes in the name of God is not a Muslim God. The Allah team has never declared that the nation of gods and earth are Muslim gods or anyone else Muslim gods. I don't know you as an individual, whether you're a Muslim God. And I value that title too much to be throwing it around. So when you say to me, you're not a Muslim God, I'm inclined to absolutely accept that you are not a Muslim God. That's right, no problem. Me, you some other type of God. And that's fine. Right. You do you. But we do Muslim God over here. We do righteous God. So that's why it's imperative to make the point that when we emphasize Muslim God, we're drawing a line in the sand and distinguishing the type of godhood we're about. We don't strive to be gods after the order of Satan. We strive to be gods, Allah. Satan isn't Allah. So you may be God, but unless you are Muslim God, you're not Allah. I'm going to say that.
Let me toss this question in there for you to build on it, True Islam, because what many of the brothers, because this is the 5% show, and just keeping it real, not many have issue with the Muslim gods, the Nation of Islam, the conscious community, not even Christians, for the most part, the criticism of the, not even 5%ers for the most part, but the most part, the criticism comes from the brothers of the Nation of God and their school of thought, in which is many different thoughts, but, they appear to be unified on certain instances. Now, one of the things that they will they will say to what you said is the fact that you have declared yourself to be Muslim means that you cannot be God, because a Muslim cannot be God because you're a Muslim. Therefore, you cannot claim God. So to them, that is a natural offense that a Muslim, Saddam Hussein, Muhammad, Master Prophet Muhammad, whoever, if you claim Muslim, you cannot claim to be God because the two are contradictory and it's either one or the other. So therefore, brothers is offended that a Muslim would call himself God. So how do you see that?
Right. Well, only one who is unlearned in the fundamental linguistics of the discussion will make such a nonsensical claim. To say a Muslim can't be a God is as linguistically incorrect as is the statement we discussed a couple weeks ago on the Black Woman is Goddess show, the statement that the black woman can't be a god because she's a goddess. That statement, as we demonstrated then, like this statement, you can't be a Muslim and a god, indicates that that person is ignorant of the meanings of the terms used. Now, all terms have denotation and connotation. All terms have what they mean strictly in the etymological sense, and most terms have taken on secondary meanings, colloquial meanings, or popular meanings. So the first thing I would say to that brother or sister is, well, what's your meaning of Muslim? There are some terms, definitions of Muslim, some understandings of the term Muslim that if that were the definition of Muslim, I would agree I am not a Muslim. I am not that. There are some definitions of God, some popular, colloquial definitions of God that if you ask me, am I that? I would have to say, no, I'm not that. But you're going to have to forgive me because I was forced to study 5 languages to get my doctorate. And that imposition made me very anal about linguistic strictures. I'm stuck on terms. Terms have meanings. I expect them to first be used in their actual meaning and not the colloquial. So Muslim is, as Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, a righteous person. I know that most religious discourse says Muslim is one who submits to do the will of Allah. And some of the brothers from the NGE put their own twist to it in conversation with us and go further and say a Muslim is one who submits to a spook god or who believes in a spook god. If a Muslim is one who believes in a spook god, then I am not that. But that has no value, no linguistic value, no etymological value. Yes, most Muslims of the world today, or most self-identified Muslims, worship a spook god. But that doesn't mean that Muslim, in its primary sense, means one who worships a spook god. In its primary sense, the term Muslim is the active participle of the form 4 derived from the form 4 Arabic word aslam. The form 4 Arabic word aslama does not mean to submit. That's a form 10. And this is Arabic linguistics. The form 10, or the 10th conjugation of the Arabic root, istalama, means to surrender. But Muslim, the term Muslim, is the active participle derived from the form 4 root, or form 4 conjugation of the basic term. And it doesn't mean to surrender. It means to be whole, to be healthy. It means peace. It means to enter into al-sim, to enter into peace. It also means free of defect, free of error and free of defect. And that's where the meaning righteous person, a person free of error and defect. That's a Muslim. So it is unsound linguistically, mathematically to say a Muslim can't be a god. That's saying a god can't be free of error or defect. That's saying a god can't be one who's sound and whole in his or her person. That's saying that a Muslim can't be, that a sound person, a person who is free of error and defect, can't be a being of paramount power and force.
Right.
But we know that a righteous person, a person free of error and defect, a person whose constitution is whole and sound, and that's thus entered in a state of peace, that person absolutely can be a being of power and force. So the argument that a Muslim can't be a god is totally unmathematical.
Indeed, God, indeed. Acknowledge that.
See, what we were taught, and this is how you taught me, as the 5%. When you born me into the 5%, we took show and prove seriously. We took that this Islam is not a religion seriously. Religious people do religious dogmatism. Religious people speak what they want it to be rather than what the facts say it is. That's what
Dr.
religious
Wesley,
people do.
Yes, break down, because a lot of people think we understand the words. Break down what dogmatism means, man, being dogmatic.
Break
that stuff down.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Islam is mathematics. The opposite is dogmatics. One is dogmatic when they believe something, not just without the proper evidences to justify that belief, but they believe something in spite of the evidences against that belief. So the best example of dogmatism in the modern world is the Flat Worlder Society, who today still maintain that the earth is flat, despite the measurements, the aerial photographs. They close their eyes to that because they are a relic of the pre-Renaissance Catholic Church, who, based on their misinterpretation of the book of Genesis, assumed that the earth was flat and that the sun rotated or revolved around the earth, because that was official church dogma. And these people want to cling to church dogma or church teaching despite the facts on the ground. They are being dogmatic. Now, you could be dogmatic in many different ways, and there's a lot of dogmatism in Islam, in the Nation of Islam, in the 5% nation, in the Nation of Gods and Earth. There's a lot of dogmatism. If you hold on, or I hold on to a belief, and I insist on it, just in spite of the data that renders that belief errant, then we're being dogmatic. We're being dogmatic if we hold on to a belief, or we claim a belief, we insist on a belief, and then we don't want to hear the facts to the contrary. We don't want to acknowledge the facts to the contrary. We want to wish them away. We want to hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil facts. Those are dogmatic persons.
Gotcha. True indeed.
And in this case, the dogmatist, in this case, is the one who says a Muslim is one who worships a spook god, and therefore no Muslim can be a god. That's the dogmatist, because the linguistic data gives a lie to that claim. And I'm glad you call him up.
I'm glad you call him a dogmatist, because I got another word for him, but go ahead.
Indeed.
Yes, sir. But that's right,
indeed, God.
Exactly.
Indeed, God. Great bill. Allahmal, you still on, great God?
Yeah, God, peace.
Okay, indeed. Because one of the things that I want to build on, to my brothers in the Nation of Gods and Earth, one of the things that I find as it relates to some of the misunderstandings and misconceptions is that they are not really familiar with the history of the Nation of Islam. They're not familiar with the history of the teachings of the nation, because I get asked all kind of questions, and many of them believe that a lot of this originated with the Father Allah, Clarence 13X. They they kind of believe he started it in a sense as far as, you know, some of the main fundamental teachings that you find in the lessons, you know. And for a period of time, it's changed up a little bit because one of the things that we got to see, the Muslim gods have been on the scene for a while, active and strong, and really have influenced a lot of the schools of thought that exist today, where at one point in time, maybe they were very adamant about or against some of the basic fundamental teachings and the lessons, you know, such as Muslim, such as how we show such a great reverence to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, how we say we submit to do the will of Allah, which is one of the explanations that was given by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But just to make a point, I often tell the brothers, you know, if you understand the lessons from the perspective of the authors, you know, as they wrote it out, the authors being Allah and the person of Master Prophet Muhammad and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when we say a Muslim is one that submits to do the will of Allah, then what does that mean? You know, because we got the lesson, who was the 5%, who was the 10%, who was the 85%, the 5% know and teach the truth, the 10% know the truth but conceal it, and they exploit the masses of the 85% who are blind, deaf, and dumb, right? But the 5% know who God is, right? And at one time, we were part of the 85%, meaning that we followed the will of the devil. Yaqub's made man. So we followed his will, thus we were 85%ers. But once we accepted our own, and once we accepted who we were and to be ourselves, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, Allah said to him that your own self is a righteous Muslim. So therefore, you did away with the ways and actions of the 85% and following Yaqub's got the devil, or the devil to being weak and wicked. Now you picked up the strong teachings of Allah, you know, for yourself, which is you teaching freedom, justice, and equality. You recognize who the true and living God is as the Son of Man, the supreme being, the black man of Asia. So now you take off the shackles of the slave master, and now you're highly evolved to the intelligence of your natural self, and now you are submitting to do your own will, your righteous will, as a righteous God, as true Islam manifested, as a Muslim God, you know, as a Muslim, as a God. So you submit to do your own will. There's nothing spooky about it. But a lot of brothers don't know the context of the lessons, and that's why you see brothers quote the lessons. And some of the brothers vilified Master Prophet Muhammad, man, so bad. And Honorable Elijah Muhammad so bad. It's like, you know, it's really because they don't know. They don't know the context of the history. They've been kind of taught against that. You know what I'm saying? So, and a lot of them really felt strongly about me in my book because I highlighted the history of the father. You know what I mean? I didn't come with no mystery, no spook. I ain't into that. You know, that's true. Islam said we need to show and prove it. So I showed, you know, naturally how the father developed as a human being. You know, there was nothing spooky about it. You know, and if brothers knew his history in context, then they would understand where the knowledge originated at and where it comes from. And how I always tell brothers this when they get upset about the whole Muslim thing, that, beloved, everything that we have that I know of in the 5%ers, we either got it directly, which is the majority of the stuff and teachings, or indirectly from the Nation of Islam. Whether it was good Muslims coming out of the mosque or whether it was bad Muslims. The good, the bad, and the ugly, we all got it from that culture, right from that mosque. And it starts with the Father Allah, because people don't understand that he was in the Nation of Islam. To the day he died, he recognized he was part of the Nation of Islam. That's the lessons, right? And, you know, for 4 years he soldiered as a FOI. That's how he learned. You know, because he was born in Danville, Virginia. He moved to Harlem at a young age, around 16 years old. And, you know, he went to the Army, you know, fought in the Korean War. And when he came back, that's when he came back to Harlem and was thriving. It was knowledge of self. People was kicking the knowledge like that. Malcolm was on the scene. And his wife, you know, our great queen mother, Dora 3X Smith, and her mother, Sister Christine, are the ones who introduced the father of Clarence Smith at the time to the teachings of the Nation of Islam. You know, and according to them and according to his sister and brother, they said he loved it. You know, he loved the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He loved being a Muslim, and he wasn't a Sunday Muslim. He wasn't somebody that, because I heard brothers say, well, you know, he hardly was in the mosque, he hardly went to the mosque. That's a lie. that brother was active in the mosque 4 years straight. I mean, day in and day out, to the point where his employment, the Earth Painters Improvement Company, was with the Nation of Islam. That's what he did for a living, and he sold the Muhammad Speaks newspapers for a living, along with a couple of other odd jobs here and there. But this brother was intricately involved in the Nation of Islam in the mosque and learning from Minister Malcolm X, who was the minister at the time, learning from Captain Yusuf Shaw, who was an excellent captain at the time, and training the brothers in the FOI class. And that is where he first got the lessons. That needs to be cleared up. And he wasn't somebody that was someone that was a fluke in the nation, because everybody had to learn the lessons. And the custom and the tradition that we got as 5%ers originated in the Nation of Islam, right, in the mosque, in the way that they got it. They would get it like one at a time. They would get the first question and answer. After they master that, they come back to their quote-unquote enlightenment, whether it was a lieutenant, the first officer, etc. They would get the knowledge degree by degree, and they would learn it, and they would master it, and they had to break it down in FOI class. This was customary and a tradition going back to the 30s. I document that in my book, The History of the Nation of Islam, Volume 1, as told by the pioneers, from 1930 to 1950. This was always a tradition, that started from Detroit, Chicago, D.C., Cincinnati, Baltimore.
Well, why don't they care? Why don't they care, though? Because you've been having this conversation. That's real talk what you're saying, man. I love that. But you've been giving this clear evidence. Why don't some of us care about the truth, bro? What's the motivation? What's the underlying motivation? Why do people really have a problem with Muslim God? I don't think it's the terminology. Why do you really think they have a problem?
Well, this is what I think the problem is. One, again, there are 85% out there that's not familiar with what's going on, right?
Can you all hear me?
Indeed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, peace to the family of the righteous. Let me just add on just a minute in reference to what Brother Philip just asked. I think their misconception is that they have never been taught the root knowledge. Now, when you take branch knowledge and you have no history of the root, you can find yourself getting lost. Now, if Allah came by himself, independent from all things, by himself, traveled 9,000 miles to seek and to save, to find one that would be his messenger to wake us up, to make us into himself. Now, how can you become himself if you do not come into a new knowledge? One of the things that I always say to anyone that I might teach or have a conversation is what is culture? Now, if culture is the outgrowth of knowledge at a particular period in history, that being the case, a man has to evolve, and as he evolves, he gets into a new knowledge. He develops a new tradition, new ideas, and a new way of life. To achieve that, which is to become, becoming Godhead, is to become one with the Lord of the world. This is very simple. If you forget the root, you're going to get it wrong. Now, if he said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the first God, the Creator, was a Muslim. Then he said, even the God, the present God, Master Fard, is a Muslim. So that's where, now, that's how you become a Muslim God, by submitting to the fact that you want to be as the Creator, you want to be as the present God who came to make you into himself. Now, if he's a Muslim, why would you deny yourself being a Muslim? So, I remember when I went into the mosque in Equality Born in 1969, after being in knowledge of self from 65, I went in, I had a big problem being God, having knowledge of self. Now, there's a difference between knowledge of self and knowledge of truth. Now, I'm not going to go too much into that, but there's a difference. One can have knowledge of self and don't have knowledge of truth. Okay? But anyway, I was told you got to be, that's where I learned how I had to become a Muslim even though I was God. So I said, well, you know what, I'm a Muslim God. And not till recently this controversial came up. I said, wow, I always been this. So, again, culture is important. Really, we have to build a new culture, which is to evolve into a new being.
Right. Can we build right there though, Allahmal? Because on that question that Brother Philip asked, it is true. There is, a lot of issues. You know what I mean? A lot of brothers take issues with Muslim gods, especially. And this just didn't come out of a vacuum. And I believe the brother Understanding is on the line. And Understanding, are you there?
Peace,
beloved.
Peace to the God.
And if you can, beloved, I want you to kind of speak on what Brother Allahmal just stated, what appears to be a recent controversy, and how this controversy came to be, in particular as it relates to social media and the internet and new people coming from, various distances after they heard rap records to become 5%ers and how the two got overlapped in a sense.
Indeed. Well, first, let me say to the universal family, the listening audience, peace in the name of Allah. I be understanding God Allah in the name of Allah, and this day of knowledge, out of cipher, all being born in knowledge.
That's right.
It's somewhat ironic that this subject would come up or be part of the program on the day of knowledge out of cipher, considering all the degrees in the 120 lessons that deal with knowledge cipher, that deal directly with the science of being a Muslim.
Indeed.
But I would say that the things that Wakeel, Allah, that Brother Allahmal built on are all true, but they're all contextual. And I'm not saying they're not true. I'm saying they're true to this particular incident or idea of people running from the term Muslim or whatever. But I would say contextually that way more than all of the science being in the lessons and people not adhering to that is it's more of a sociological aspect. This is something sociological. The majority of our people, just like gangs or anything else, typically we bond with one another for social reasons before we even know. We claim to believe stuff. We just say stuff, right? It doesn't have to go to church or mosque or whatever. We might know a portion of it. Like, that's some pretty amazing stuff. You don't know that you're God when you just start saying that. Because I'm speaking as a 5%er now, not in the general terms, because you just got mathematics. In fact, you don't even know the definition of what a 5%er is, because that doesn't even come up until the last lesson that you get as a 5%er. So it's a sociological aspect to it, which I believe is the overwhelming reason. And so to go from there is, it is recent and it's not recent. This is a very long history. For one, we actually could trace it back 40 years, and even before that, the terminology Muslim God, and I'll just bring it all the way up into the late 20th century or 21st century or whatever, the denial of being Muslim or whatever as it has become, that did not come out of a vacuum. That came out of a particular social order that was born, transforming from the late 80s into the early 90s. And hip-hop definitely played a part in it, but also the social cipher changed. The 5%ers never had a Mecca like is clearly written in the Quran, right? There's a Qibla, right? It was Jerusalem, and then it became Mecca. Although there's a birthplace of civilization, up until a particular period of time, the 5%er was almost like a Ronin samurai, by definition, right? It's each one teach one, and where you could be anywhere. You could be in the military, you could be in the drug den, you could be wherever, you could be in school, and each one teach one. There wasn't necessarily a place that you would go to get this knowledge or whatever. And one of the things that happened is when the internet came on, as early as 1993, there was a 5% presence on there. There was young college kids who were computer scientists and studying physics and going to school in that realm that were attracted to the 5% science and were manifesting different things on the computer. And what they did was they weren't from New York, they weren't from the tri-state area, they weren't from the East Coast, which is kind of like where, this pocket of culture just existed. It was just a part of the culture. Just like L.A. had its culture with gangs and a different type of consciousness, the East Coast had the 5%ers. But most of these kids were from other places. They're from Texas. They're from Indiana. There are all these different pockets. And they have bits and pieces of their knowledge. And they began to centralize on a place where do you get this knowledge? And for once in history, a law school in Mecca became a resource for people in a different way than a community center or a place that you only knew if you went to Harlem or if you were from that area. It became a place that people would travel from far and wide. Now, that sounds really good, except there's no criterion to say if a person is qualified or disqualified to qualify somebody else in that. It doesn't function like a school in the sense of a charter school or a public school or a university or whatever. So you had individuals that, even though the culture itself says there's no leaders and no followers, young black men are always looking for leadership. This is just, I'm 44 years old, so I'm not in denial. You're not going to get passive-aggressive out of me and say, I'm my own man and all that stuff. Like, let's just be real. Like, it is all about community life. So even though it's not in the wording, just like there's certain words that 5%ers don't say. 5%ers don't say submit. 5%ers typically won't say pray. Even though these words might be in the lessons or whatever, there's still some sort of parallel typically. But if you're in denial of that, then you could become very passive-aggressive outwardly. Anyways, you start to have this body of people get their knowledge from this one particular source, and whoever was up there at the time, which might be 2 or 3 people, it might be very sound. But you also might get a part of the person along with that knowledge itself. You might get a part of their philosophies and their ideals. And then you could start to take those on. And to show and prove that happened was, after a while, you could go almost anywhere in the country and you would find all these young people that they would actually attribute that they got knowledge itself from one particular person. And I'll say the name for the sake of the show, but people already know who I'm talking about because he was there at the law school the most during those years. And a lot of people, particularly non-New Yorkers, would try and emulate his vernacular, the way he spoke, his passive aggressiveness, and it became a part of their social order. And so there was kind of like this admission, this denial, along with being their own entities. They were in these isolated pockets. So like most kids, you're going to personalize the knowledge you have as we're the ones. Because, you're in the basement, DJing with your friends. You think you're the best in the world or whatever, but no one's ever heard you. So you're not really challenged. So because you got knowledge at this source that you believe is the headquarters, and it is the root, and then you're mixing it up with your own friends, you begin to go out in the world as validated. So when you run across other people that are a part of the natural culture, as it has been traveling, each one teach one, the only thing that mattered in the 5% culture, first and foremost above anything else, was knowing your lessons. This was the criterion in conversation, even to get anywhere. Well, as soon as you say peace, God, it's going to be some small talk and where you from and this and that, your name, and yo, God, what's today's math? What degree?
Yeah, that's right.
This is a social order. So when this began to happen, the social order changed, and you began to have young men that rather than getting into the lessons, they would say, well, who taught you? Because I got my knowledge from a law school and so-and-so. And it changed the social order. And so in places like Allah's Garden or Atlanta, where Wakeel Allah, True Islam, and many of the foundational people of the law team, brothers that were with them for God Tribe of Shabazz, and other people, there was a burgeoning sect of young people that were heavily influenced. Many of them, and I'm being very, very, very candid, many of them, their first real black experience for wherever they were from was getting involved in those black colleges down south. They were being completely immersed in black culture, although they didn't necessarily come from black culture. And so now you have the identity crisis trying to find itself. There's nothing blacker. There's nothing blacker. If you're intelligent and you're articulate and you're erudite, there's nothing blacker than being a 5%er because it's got that hood piece to it. It's got that validation. And if you're from one of these places and, let's just speculate where those places might be, and you're being immersed into this different world per se, no pun intended, you want to identify with the down thing so you're not ostracized. And so the 5% of culture began to change a lot. And, whenever you get people that's gung-ho like that, they're kind of like the kids that they want to show the other kids, I'm not afraid to jump off the roof. I'm not afraid to take it all the way. Right. And so you saw that rise. You saw this growth, and we're validated by so-and-so. We're validated by the source, and this is who we are. And they began to challenge brothers who are long and well-rooted in the natural culture, which was 120. So when the conversations would take place, it would sound exactly like what Wakeel and Allahmal just said. Like, you go through 120, it's very obvious that you're a Muslim. You just can't get around it. Like a literate person that just would pick it up and read, say, oh, ultimately, I guess, you're Muslim. Like, you wouldn't come to that. It wouldn't, it's not like high science to come to that. It's not something you would have to figure out. But the individual's philosophy that was being put upon these people and spread among those particularly began to take hold. And part of that philosophy was not just not being Muslim, but being anti-Muslim. And even to a point, making the Muslim as the ideological enemy who actually wants to steal the so-called true culture. This is kind of the mentality that was put into a lot of people. Really, I mean,
ain't that true though?
For all intents and purposes, they were 85% in this way, culturally. The way that the 5%er never falls to these type of things is what? Is it same historical culture, just to make sure that personality never takes precedence above the knowledge, is 120 is always first.
Right.
So we almost end up with this. You end up with, even though they might be the same age, it would be almost like, and I'm going back to using another analogy, it would be like the hometowners versus the college student in school days. You got these people that they rooted in the knowledge, and they looking crazy to these kids that think they know because they're getting it from the source. They're saying they validated. Could you imagine being a physicist or a medical doctor and somebody coming and telling you about your profession, like, brain surgery or something, and they told you they know more because they're from Minister Farrakhan? Imagine if someone comes in and you don't know what you're talking about because you got that knowledge from, I'm from the source. You ain't a medical doctor from Minister Farrakhan. You just with him. So that was the mentality. Like, I got it from so-and-so. I'm from law school, And then, so you literally had a sociological shift now. Rather than people validating how rooted you were based upon how well you were with connecting the dots with these lessons, which are tied, connecting the dots within the 120 actually forces you into the history because it creates a curiosity. Well, who are these people to begin with? Like, what are you saying when you say W.D. Farad? What are you saying when you say W.F. Muhammad? What are you saying when you say Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Who is this God that he's talking about that he's saying he would give all his power to see the devil take it off the planet? Like, who are these people? And why is Muhammad mentioned all through today's degree, in fact? So you had people actually, what they started to do was they became, what is that called, the denial, plausible denial. They became so ingrained in that they actually just stopped quoting those particular degrees. They were actually not quote any of the degrees in today's lesson, like knowledge cipher, because that all dealt with Muhammad. Can the devil fool a Muslim? Oh, that guy don't refer to me, God, because, that's not me, that's them. You know what I'm saying? Right. And ultimately it got to an arrogant state where the group of individuals took on the science of saying, well, Master Fard Muhammad, actually, I'm the other uncle. So he's under me. So now it went from a quantitative aspect to a qualitative. Oh, because I'm older than him by nature, technically, if you understand what I'm saying. I'm an uncle to a nephew. I actually have authority. You know what I'm saying? And these type of things were used to justify people's position, and it became volatile. But the truth be told is that split didn't just happen for philosophical reasons. It came out of the one disease that is heavy in the black and brown community this day, jealousy and envy. A group of brothers in that environment chose not to deal with drugs or alcohol or iniquity in that form. Many of them was very militant, too, and had a lot of order. But drugs and alcohol is the typical center point that I'll use right now. The irony in this, and you'll follow along how the story shifts just to who goes from being the enemy to being the friend and who becomes the enemy is very interesting, which just shows you that somebody's behind this. That's where the split began. Now, the people who didn't do drugs and drink or whatever, they didn't down the brothers who did.
Right.
But little things would happen. Like if there was rallies and there were children there, those brothers would enforce. You can't smoke weed around these kids. Right. You can't drink around these children. Or we're in a facility that we're renting out that's owned by one of the schools or by the city library or whatever. You can't do that here. We have to respect the property based upon how we got it. This caused a backlash. Now, in the civilized world, a civilized people, the backlash would have been what? You just go build another edifice or another environment, right? Christian would have just built a church. But these people, that's not the culture. The culture is just this vagabond type thing, right? So you're on your own. Whatever you were doing with your life, you continue to do that. So since there's no energy being put into building something opposite to challenge what you didn't like, all of the energy goes into the judgmental factor. So it gradually ends up becoming that these people are the enemy, they're the enemy. Now, the black man is righteous by nature. And I'm not saying that just on some philosophical stuff or because I read it from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's in the Quran. That's in Arabic. That came 1,400 years before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad stood up and said it because it's your nature. And somebody said it 1,400 years before that and thousands of years before that. Right. You have something called your fitra. You were born right and just. And you had to be tilted off of that. And it's something that your mind and your body are constantly fighting to return back to. So the conscience of man already feels insecure when you stand a drunk man next to a sober man. Anybody will tell you that. And so depending on the humility of an individual, if a man feels insecure to a particular degree, he'll challenge the sober person as being arrogant, or he'll challenge the other people who are not sober to try to create a coup or a judgment on the ones that are sober. So even though the sober group of people did not have any judgment, it was free to come and go as you could, there started to be a small burgeoning growth of people that became very judgmental. Now, ironically, this is where the people on the radio come into play, because Dr. Wesley Muhammad, who then known as Wise and then True Islam Allah, he was the progenitor of this. He was the most vocal. And the irony and the funniest part is, if you study his history, the brothers had the problem with True Islam because he was so adamant about, not doing drugs, not drinking. And, he said something from then all the way till now, like you might be God or whatever, but you're not living in accord with that. And so brothers started to look at that in the enemy form. And the irony is back then, Wakeel was considered the go-to person. Like, you could deal with Wakeel, but you can't deal with True Islam because he's adamant about that. Wakeel.
Right, the irony,
like that.
indeed.
That's the irony. That's the irony. And to see how the irony switched is why, even though what Wakeel and Allahmal were talking about is true, I disagree totally that is the cause for any of it, because they have singled Wakeel out the exact same way that a particular community of the Jews singled out Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan. There's an intent behind it, because it's not the philosophy. The anti-Muslim movement doesn't have anything to do with the philosophy of being anti-Muslim. It's anti a particular individual for whatever reason the people who started being anti that individual have. And they're the only ones who know that agenda. So no matter how nice or how much of a hand he puts out, let's dialogue, let's debate, it'll never happen, because that's not the point. Is the individual. That's why when the pressure gets on the people, they ultimately will come out and say, well, I really ain't got no problem with the Muslims, no problem with Wakeel Allah. But that's another story. So
and it used to be I got a problem with True Islam Allah.
Right,
I love Wakeel, but I can't mess with True Islam. And now it's exactly. And so now you're coming from pre-Million Man March through the Million Man March, and this mentality is growing and growing. Why? Because now the internet is allowing those type of people to communicate even greater with one another. So now they're taking it to the next level, which is good in one way, because now the music is pro 5%. The school is on blast, because now you see the law school and music videos. People are traveling to New York, but they're traveling to rotate around the ideologies of individuals. They don't know anything about their people's history, their character, or whatever. It's just as long as you're somehow attached to what's called the tree, you somehow are validated. Can you imagine? That's like, we can have jail talk, right? Imagine you just trust the guy who gives you cigarettes because he's been there 20 years and knows the game. You know what's going to happen, but you're going to find that out later. You're going to have to learn the hard way. You just trust the people because they paying attention to you. You think that you were special, but you're about to get it. So this is kind of so the internet makes it more accessible, and you have a lot of this going on. And so then there just began to be a growing sentiment, not just anti-Muslim, but that the Muslims somehow thought less of the non-Muslim gods. And when I say non-Muslim and Muslim here, this follows a particular time benchmark. This isn't referring to it the way the brothers were building on earlier. Now I'm talking about Muslim and non-Muslim, and Muslim in the term of choosing to abstain from vice.
versus those who may choose to deal with vice. This is really
I want to add on. Can I add on? I know y'all don't. Before you do, can I cite an incident that illustrates the key incident that set it all in motion, the controversy that Under is highlighting? Do you mind, Under?
No, sir.
This is to illustrate the history. I was the first persona non grata Muslim God of this dispensation. And as the God stated, the issue was, vice. The Islam, as I got it from Wakeel, as 5%ers, we didn't do that. And so that's how Wakeel born his students. That's how he taught his students. That's how I got it. That's how I taught my students. A particular incident is a springboard for the whole controversy as it went national. I had one of my students, and ironically, that brother's son is at MUI. I love the brother, and I seen his father. I seen my brother recently, but at this time, I had of my many students, there was one particular brother. Now, I told all of my students, you want to get life, you want to get these degrees, you got to abstain from smoking and drinking. That's the way. So all of my students knew that. One day, this particular student came, and he was drunk. And I checked him for being drunk. And I took some of his lessons. So, that's the way. I didn't think twice about it. I and Wakeel are walking to Steagles, that was the chicken shack back in the day.
Always
eating
Steagles.
Indeed. Always eating chicken. We walking. I had just, not too long ago, I had acquired my 120. And see, back in that day, you had to earn your flag. You couldn't just get the flag. You had to master the whole 120 in order to be able to wear your flag. And when I mastered it, I was so excited. I went and got not just a pin, but I went and had a whole slew of T-shirts made with a big old flag on them. Because every day I stepped out, I wanted to have my flag. So we walking to Steagles. I got my flag on, and there's some guards there, and they stepped to me, said, "Yo, we hear there's a problem." I'm thinking that the problem they're coming to me on is my student was smoking and drinking, and they wanted to pat me on the back for handling it correctly. Come to find out, I was the problem. That because I disallowed my students from engaging in those vices, that I was the problem. And so they were angered at me and how, they used to do it back in the day, because I had on my shirt, they called themselves giving me an intellectual beatdown, take me through every single degree, make me show and prove or justify the flag. And if I couldn't justify it, they were prepared to rip that flag up off me. That's what they had hoped, that they can rip me, they could derobe me, rip that shirt up off me, because you couldn't wear the flag without. So they took me through the degrees, but I'm a God, man. I was raised right. I'm a Muslim God. And I swear they took me through a lot of zigzag zig. I was sweating, it was hot, because they wanted to murk me. But by Allah's grace, I murked them. And at the end of it, they had to give me my pound, and I left that cipher with my flag. But from then on, the hate was on, it went to the next level. And that was the incident that generated the national controversy and hate over the Muslim gods that we experienced. Go ahead.
Right. Indeed, God. And I would just like to add on to that incident, because that was a very paramount incident, because that was really for me anyway, affirmation that a group of 5% can walk and talk mathematics without indulging in the vices of the dead world and be successful and be accepted and recognized. See, I said that the mission statement of Allah's team or the Muslim gods initially was to show and prove the black man is God, right? But immediately right behind that was we wanted to live out the divine culture and the prescribed laws of Islam to the said people of that ability to make us gods. And that was a big part of us being vilified because the brothers had an organ at the time, still got it, it's 5% of the newspaper, and they had wrote a little build about it was these gods in Allah's garden, Muslim gods, standing against drinking, smoking, and they out there saying it ain't right. And if you see them, you're going to visit them. Like, you know, it was that difficult to walk with the universal flag and say, hey, we're going to live this out cleanly. Now, we ain't the first to do it. This happened at Parliament. This has happened in New York City way before we even attempted, and it was very difficult there. But I say this because some say, well, because they were saying then, well, God, you know, we always dealt with this, you know, so y'all on some Muslim stuff by not dealing with it. But if you look at the history of the Father Allah, and again, go back to his history in the mosque, the Father Allah was like a righteous Muslim for 4 years straight. You know, when he came out in the streets and dealt with what he said was the city science, that was part of a methodology to get to the youth, so the elders say. And eventually, you would be purified of the different vices. You understand what I'm saying? You would try to abstain from the different vices, and the Father spoke of prophetically that there would be 5%ers that won't deal with none of this. And one day we're going to stop all of this. And one of the things he said that he was going to stop crime, which is another mission statement of Muslim gods, you know. So initially we was controversial, but I said the Muslim gods have been on the scene for quite a while, and we have impacted the cipher. So now, you know, a lot of people can walk it and talk it as the Muslim gods do in a sense and not necessarily receive total vilification for it. You know, and this is where we are going with it, and this is the time of what must be done. Man, everybody, the Father said it like this. He said it, according to some of the elders, he said, son, if you see somebody doing something and they die from it, you know that that's the wrong thing to do, right? And we got a long history, brother, in our black community, and we not separate from it, you know, as in the 5%, because the 5% was here and there, they went in speak with the community, right? So a lot of brothers and sisters have fallen victim to certain vices, and that's not judging them at all, because, you know, we know the devil's trap for us at the time. But hell, if you got brothers and sisters that's trying to come together and be positive, why lambast that? You know what I mean? It should be accepted. As we accepted our brothers, because like what you said, now if you was with us, we said you can't deal with that if you were with us, as in our crew and our cipher, but we could go to a parliament and, you know, if you're doing it, you're doing it. You're doing it, you're doing it. You're not affiliated with us. Right, we never judged anybody, but we got judged. And that's part of the vilification process. And there's so much history we can get into. I know we're going to have to do a part 2 with this, but anyhow, I just wanted to we're going to open it up.
Yeah, go ahead. So who's
building? I'm good.
But Philip, you wanted to say something.
Yeah. I wanted to add on because y'all some brilliant scientists, man, and I think that's one of the problems for the NGE or whoever else who has the problem with y'all. Y'all too smart. You're too smart. You're very intelligent, and so what happens is a lot of things that you all are saying, people just can't comprehend because you all are, especially under when I'm listening to under and Wesley and how you breaking down the etymology of the words and things like this. This is very important for us to understand. Very important to understand. It's almost like, and I don't want to be disrespectful, and I'm not disrespectful, but people can take it how they want to take it. It's like, man, why would you argue with a retarded kid? Now, what is a retarded person? A retarded person who has a learning disability. Mm-hmm. Now, it can be an imposed learning disability because you're in a particular social environment that imposes upon you inability to learn. And then it could be you're unwilling to learn. You just choose not to learn. And then it could be a situation where you don't know how to learn. So one thing that I respect to understand, first of all, there's like two men I know like really close to me, not really close like that, but they like can make me feel like kind of slow. And that's Dr. Wesley and understanding. Now, of course, I'm not slow. I'm not slow.
You got a brilliant black mouth. You got a brilliant black mouth.
Okay. And my thing, and of course, I'm not slow because I understand exactly what understanding is saying, and I understand what Dr. Wesley is saying, and I understand what all the guys on the phone are saying, and I also know how to correlate what's being said with the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So of course, I'm not slow, but that was my form of a compliment to you all, and watching Allah and the other great God. So check this out.
Allahmal.
Because everybody, a lot of the nation guys are Earth or NGE or whoever the other 5% are, they rejected Islamic terms, right? So they don't want to call themselves Allah, they'll call themselves God. They ain't going to call themselves holy attributes in Arabic. They're going to call it in English. But
now, I would say that's appropriate. I would give them that. They don't want to call themselves Allah. They want to call themselves God because, the Muslim God. If you're not a Muslim God, you ain't Allah. So I give them that, and I can see that point to them.
And so you and Dr. Wesley and understanding is real smart, but I'm going to say some stuff to y'all, too, that hopefully y'all be like, damn, maybe I didn't see it like that. I don't know Arabic. I know it enough to do my prayer, and I know it a little bit just like that. And check this out. Most of us who call ourselves Muslims, gods, whether you're in a nation, whether you're a Christian, I don't care who you are, we have a poor understanding of the English language. The average man speaks 400 words considered well. The average man speaks 400 words considered well. So what should an average God speak? You understand? What should an average God speak? Ask yourself that. And then ask yourself, why would the God say that the average man speaks 400 words considered well? And then what does considered mean? Does considered mean before or after the fact? Meaning this. The average man speaks 400 words considered well, meaning do we think about it before we say it? Consider what I'm saying? Think about what I'm saying before I say it? Or I'm talking and I'm talking and I'm talking, but I don't speak well, so that's why ain't nobody listening to me. So my words are not being considered. You understand what I'm saying? And since my words are not being considered, what is one of the instructions, right? The laborers must speak and use grammatic pronunciation of words and syllables in the past, present, future, and perfect tense. And if we don't use it that way, the lessons will not be considered. The answers will not be considered. So a lot of us are out here teaching and trying to show and prove the truth, but people ain't even thinking about what we're saying. They ain't even thinking about it. Why? Because we're not speaking the people's language. Why? Because we're speaking over their head. We're sounding dope. We're sounding smart. We're sounding intelligent, but most of the people we're talking to are easily led in the wrong direction, hard to be led in the right. Why? Why are they being led, period? Because they don't study, because they don't read, because they're being tricked. And what's tricking them? The language. So what happens is a lot of us who's young, we hear the language and we get caught up and drawn up in the language because the language is a beautiful language. It makes perfect sense. It sounds good. No different than you hear an Arab dude speaking or a young child in Arabia speaking the Holy Quran. We don't know nothing what he's saying, but when he's reciting the Holy Quran, it's beautiful. And we can see that. So we get drawn up in the rhythmic chant of the language. And that's the same thing that happens, man, when you get a youngster in the 60s or whatever the case may be who is talking one language and you give them a new language that's different, opposites what? Attract. Like tell. Unlike attract, right? So what happens is that you're attracting people because of the language. And what happens then, and now you shining. You shining. You never shined before because you did what? You separated yourself. So now your identity is based on separation. I'm not a Muslim. See, I know this wisdom, but I'm not a Muslim. See, you want to be distinct and you want to be unique. And so what happens is if we don't understand deep the language and deep who we are and what it means, self is two selves, right? It's the individual self and the group self. You don't understand this. So your identity is to separate yourself, raise your value, and at the same time lower the value of other people because you have low self-esteem. So Honorable Elijah Muhammad comes to say the black man is God. Why? So we can crash into this self-esteem issue we got. There ain't nothing more empowering than saying I'm God. Now, what happens when you say that you God, Lord? I'm God, but you don't study to be a Lord. So why does Muhammad make the devil study from 35 to 50 years?
35
I would ask you, and he's a devil, and he's a universal snooper. That means he likes to study. He realizes him studying is going to keep him. He always looking for the sciences. That's the reason why we buried him. We had to hide the sciences. He always looking. So
Indeed. That's a good point.
Blind, deaf, and dumb.
That's a good
for
point.
400 years. We couldn't read. We don't have Google. We don't have none of that for 400 years. Meanwhile, white folks are steadily studying. So when we come up out of slavery, we don't know nothing. So what do we want to do? We want to get our language. So we start getting our language. Now, this is the problem. I was talking to a so-called NGE in Los Angeles a few weeks ago. And the brother said, I'm God. I said, okay, check this out, bro. You ever seen an egg? He said, yeah, I seen an egg. I said a chicken egg, right? Would you look at an egg, a literal egg, and say that's a chicken? And he say, no, that's an egg. I said, okay, but what's the difference between a chicken and egg? And he thought about it. I said, the only difference between a chicken and egg is time, opportunity, environment, growth, development. I said, so yeah, you're God, but you're still an egg. Because everything that makes an egg a chicken, an egg, an egg a chicken is in the egg. But what's missing? The environment. So what happens is as you're developing to be a chicken, the chicken's survival is based upon its ability to do what? Exist within the environment. As what? As a chicken. You understand? So there's no difference between a chicken. I mean, if you ask me for a chicken because you like chicken, Dr. Wesley, if you ask me for a chicken, man, I want a sandwich. I gave you an egg. I gave you an egg in the middle of two pieces of bread. You'd be like, fool, what is that? I said, man, that's a chicken sandwich. You'd be like, that ain't no chicken sandwich. I said, yes, it is, because everything that's in the chicken is in that egg. You just got to give it some time.
Now, for the record, I eat egg sandwiches too.
I know, but no, that ain't no egg sandwich. That's a chicken sandwich. But I hope you get the point on this, right? You get the point what I'm saying? Okay, now last point. Now let's redefine, because we don't know Arabic and we don't know English. And the thing about English is tricky in its nature. So it's designed that way, right? So my thing is like this. If we say we are Muslims, what do I say? I say the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, Master Prophet Muhammad gave us the title of Muslim. And he gave us instructions on how to be a Muslim, those 13 original instructions. And he didn't call us Muslims. He said that's our title, but he always referred to us as students. So if somebody asks me what's a Muslim, I say a Muslim is a student. And they say, well, what is he studying? He's studying the universe. So I'm always studying the universe. And then you say, well, damn, I thought Muslims mean you submit. I do submit. What do you submit to? The truth. What does submit mean? Not from the devil. Remember, the average man speaks 400 words considered well. Well, we ain't average. We're trying to be God.
Right.
Trying to manifest for living God. So you can say it as a slave. I say it as God. And when somebody asks me what does submit mean, I say it means to agree. Because I'm only going to bend my knees if I agree with you. I'm only going to bow to Dr. Wesley because I agree that he's a superior individual based on his study and his demonstration in a particular subject. So I can submit to the truth. That's what God does. He submits to the truth. Why does he submit? Because he agrees with it. We're looking for agreement. Right. Why does the devil got to be removed? He's 100% unagreeable. We can't live. That means that he don't want to agree. He gonna disagree no matter what, because he's rebellious by nature, right? So now how do you learn the truth? You got to study the truth. So a Muslim studies God, and a Muslim studies the universe, and that's what he does. And when you say, well, how do you? Another word for submit, God. Submit means also to give. I'm going to submit my answer. Dr. Wesley is a professor, man, and he's teaching me. He says, hey, when y'all finish listening, I want y'all to submit my answer. Now, check this out, God. This is a true and living God. So how would I submit my answer to you, Lord? I can talk all I want to talk, lessons and everything, but you're going to judge me based on what I do. Because if I talk one thing and do another, you're going to look at me as a hypocrite. So God has to get to a certain level, and they're not concerned about what you say. It's what you do. So your practice, your last term examination, you're going to be judged by what you do based upon what you know. And when you're doing it, you're submitting. You're submitting your answers. I'm giving you my answers. That's a good point. So you can judge. True indeed. Right? So Allah does not contradict Muslims to swear allegiance to his brother so long as he does not break that allegiance. Neither does the Bible in this case. So we're all brothers, not because of what comes out of our mouths, but because of what we do. So when you see me, Dr. Wesley, when you see me, Wakeel, I'm submitting answers. Is this dude real or is not real?
That's a good point. That's good teaching.
Right? And so God, a Muslim is a student, and you can't be a civilizer, right? Listen, man, the 5%.
They are the poor righteous teachers who do not believe in the teachings of the 10%. That means they know the teachings of the 10%. And they said, I don't believe in that. Yeah. And they're all wise. And then what do? They teach. See, so you got to teach, right? So if you don't want to present, how can you be taught? So I'm a God, and I realize I can still learn. So I'm a God, but I'm a Muslim because I'm studying how to be God. Last one, it takes you 35 to 50 years for a devil to be called a Muslim son. Okay? He's always a devil, but why do we start referring to him as a Muslim son? Based upon what you know. So as far as I'm concerned, you's a nigga until you show what you know. You understand what I'm saying? And we can call you a Muslim, but you have a responsibility and you have an obligation. But if you don't want to live up to the obligation, if you don't want to live up to the responsibility, then you're not a civilized person because you're not going to perform your duty. And since you're not going to perform your duty, you should be punished by the Nation of Islam. And that is an intrinsic fear of anybody who's a hypocrite who do not follow what they think they know, especially if it's of the righteous nature. They hate you, Wakeel, in understanding, and Brother Wesley, because number one, to get a PhD, I don't care
and
about
Brother
PhD.
Philip.
Yeah. Well, they hate me for a whole other reason, but yeah, okay. So my thing is this, Dr. Wesley, and last thing, Dr. Wesley, which is with all due respect and humility, brother, I personally don't care about your PhD because, I don't give a damn about white folks. You know what I respect? I respect the fact that you went through that process and you didn't lose yourself. I appreciate that, through that process, and you were disciplined enough to get your degree when everybody else was having fun. You probably had a little fun, but you stayed disciplined. It's a process, Lord, and you learned how to think.
I appreciate that.
And you know how to think.
That, Black God.
And understand, and all praise you, and understanding, you know how to think. And the great gods on this phone, y'all know how to think. Most of the people that we talk to don't know how to think. And we're trying to get them to think.
Indeed.
But the first obstacle to learning, for Dr. Wesley, you know this to be true, brother. The first obstacle is thinking you already know. If you already know, you ain't going to live.
Absolutely.
And the first step, last point, the first step to learn is that you got to admit that you don't know. Now, when somebody come and tell you God, but you don't understand what that means, and you're a little boy, then all you're going to do is do what? You're going to think you know, and you ain't trying to hear nothing else.
Right.
And they love the baby. Father Allah went and got the baby. They love the baby, right? The bad thing about it is too many of those who claim Father Allah, even though they're 70, 60, 50, 30, they still babies. They ain't grew up. They ain't learned how to be God.
True indeed. All
right, that's all I say.
True indeed.
Peace, Lord. That's what I say.
Peace, Allah.
Peace. Peace. I mean, what you're building on, that all goes into the sociological, though. This goes into the timeline, and I won't stay on that timeline, but that goes into the timeline that I was building on. Because there is a particular point, by the way, because Brother Allahmal said in recent times, but you have to understand something. In this trajectory that we just were talking about prior, coming into this anti-Muslim sentiment or whatever, the sentiment of the group that was anti-Muslim was that the nation of gods and earth is not 5%, the women and the babies. So they weren't even taking on the ideology that they were all wise, true and living, and they don't believe in the teachings of 10%. And that's how you fall victim. And now, you don't fall victim like that because you're stupid. You fall victim because it's part of the social equality of the group that you're with. You didn't account for one thing while you accounted for another. And so when this becomes part of the social realm, then information starts to get lost and left out. And the other thing is we just have to be honest as black people. All of the, like, you can crack your self-esteem with high titles or whatever, but at a baby level, you deal with, when you're in kindergarten, you learn compare and contrast. There's 60, 70, 80-year-old people that are black that think because they know compare and contrast that's an advantage. So saying God, I know there's people on here that think, oh, this is shirk and this is not. But beyond all of that, we're talking terminology. Many people that say that, they may or may not even believe that. It's because it's quantitative. God means more than Muslim. It's just a term. It means more than Muslim, so people adopt it because their social group says, no, I'm not Muslim because that would be less than God. And so so as opposed to getting into all of the sciences of degrees and showing that, well, in the lessons it's one and the same and all of that stuff, or that, Master Prophet Muhammad came to, to make all men gods and all of that, it's just a simple fact of at a baby level, you deal with things quantitatively. But X is an interesting letter, and it's ironic that it is part of the 5% curriculum because, in truth, we are afraid of education. And it's one of the biggest setbacks that we have because there is still this very strange idea that what you just complimented on Dr. Wesley on, that'll still happen, that if somehow if you gain education, that you'll somehow, like that education is so powerful that it will take you into the white man's world as opposed to making you a black man that says, you know what, I can navigate beyond the boundaries of the ones that I navigate in with these high titles that I use. And that fear typically will keep the person who has the most celebrity or that's looked to the most within the group, they'll gain control over another group of people they might not intentionally mean to do that, but they do that maybe unintentionally because the people are afraid to go beyond that. Look at the level that people go to learn that they're God or whatever, right? It pretty much runs into a dead end in Islam, so then they get into Buddhism, which the music helped shape because the Wu-Tang took another generation. And so people didn't want to say they was Muslim, but they were saying all the things that a Muslim says. They just wasn't using the word submit. They wasn't using certain words. Because when you get older, you get more spiritual. So you got to have the place to deposit that spirituality. You can't just be a forever.
Let me make an announcement real quick. Hold on, real quick. Let me make an announcement real quick, brothers. We have 17 minutes left on the call. If you want to call in as we extend the call just a little bit longer, man, and y'all want to call in and push 1-646-595-4289. 646-595-4289. In 15 minutes, the internet connection is going to shut down. So you all, if you want to continue on with the call, we got a lot of people online. Make sure you call in right now. Go ahead, Lord.
And we're going to get to those. So we're going to extend this as long, at least another hour, right, Wop?
Yeah, but
they would extend it for an hour, right?
Right. Well, they won't let us extend it. But, the people can call in and they can hear the remaining of the show for 3 hours. If
right.
Like
That's
that.
what I mean. Not on the internet,
right.
But those who call in.
You will be able to catch it on the archive. You will be able to, they'll record it, and they'll be able to, the whole thing will be on the archive. But I suggest that everybody right now who's listening on the internet, because it's really going to get interesting when we open up these lines. So make sure you call.
We are opening up the lines.
646-595-4289. Now let us hear our pioneer, brother. Go ahead, Soldier. I interrupted you earlier.
No, it's all peace, and I'll digress. I'm making my point. It's very important because it doesn't cover one particular group. It's across the board. The educational piece is something, particularly black males, that we fear, and we are in a different age. Many of us got knowledge of self, or our peers got knowledge of self, or those that came before us, in an era where the man was just a symbol of brawn, and the woman was the symbol of femininity. But we're in the age of intelligence now. And that's why, even though people are against all of these different things that have happened, that are going against our morality and our belief, they're also bringing into position the well-roundedness of the man, because he has to have some intellectual ability to go with that brawn. He has to have something to go with all that title. So it's kind of like a birthing canal. But that fear of education is what keeps people from moving forward. So once again, I go back to the same scene in the same movie with the townies and the school students. That scene, this goes to show you just the Islamic genius within the recesses of the mind of Spike Lee. That is a paradigm. That is a paradigm of the fear of education and the ability and the inability to see how big your world is, even though you're both standing in the exact same place. The only difference between those two groups was that one had knowledge beyond the place they stood, and the others only had knowledge. So you saw wisdom exchanged by each of them that wasn't parallel, but it both was educational to the other side. So there was an exchange that happened, but because of a lack of culture, our exchanges rarely ever get that far, and they become volatile, right? and we fight or we kill each other or whatever. But a lot of that is educational. There are people to this day, whether they say they're Muslim or God, they won't even attempt to approach the Quran because think of how small-minded this is, but we don't even reflect on it. There is this subconscious belief that learning the Quran is somehow going to take you into believing something other than the thing that you swear to God that you believe by, and that no God could ever change you from believing that. So then we challenge each other socially. Yo, God, would you pray? Would you learn the Arabic and this and that? And we immediately lessen the person. You're not even thinking but the same person could stand in the same place, and if he was telling you, yo, check this out, and it was Japanese, you would be like, yo, that's deep. But because now check this out. You take a lesson from a man who told you that the black man was God, but he told you that he also had a language and a culture. And you have to admit this. I'm being very candid and hard on myself and my people. We take the surface of everything. So we don't take the language and the culture. We just take the title. The people go to Sunni Islam, what's the first thing they do? Man, I don't get caught up in that, who believes in a mystery God. The first thing the black man do is he dye his beard red, he pull up his pants high, he ain't even hardly got a wife, and he go get a second wife. He do all the surface stuff before he know the hadith, before he know the Quran. A club open up in the neighborhood, you don't know if it's good, bad, or ugly. It's just because it's open. You going, you rushing. And you going to go there until it burns down or everybody gets shot and L&I come and shut it down. It's all the surface because there's a lack of education to slow us down to say, well, is that practical or where do I want to go with this? See, when you get knowledge of self, you're pretty much going to rise to the level of your social group. And if your social group doesn't have goals that are necessarily beyond yours, what'll happen is you'll peel off. And people might not understand why you peel off, but that might be why you peel. A lot of people, we just had a brother named Naeem on our 5% series show, and he told his story. Him and his men, they're some of the first brothers that was with the Father. But they had much requisite knowledge of the world because of their knowledge and love of jazz. And they were like, yo, you're going to end up strung out in heroin and dying messing around with these fools. So they moved into the realm of knowledge and took the knowledge there and created. Now, that might be heretical to people within the group, right? Because that's what people do in a religious group. But the truth is when knowledge will cause you to seek areas beyond. Dr. Wesley he's almost a quagmire. He's definitely a paradox for many people.
Break that out because a lot of people don't know what quagmire is. Give me
I'll get to that.
definition.
Listen,
I'm a
man,
quack. I don't know what that means.
See, one thing about me is I hold everybody to the level that they are intelligent. So I'm going to pull it out of you. I'm not going to treat you like you somehow might be dumb and don't know. I'm holding you to the level. Because if you listen to the context of what I say, then it will define the word for you. So he's a paradox, if you will, for the fact to his own people and the group that he belongs to, because you need education to be able to expound beyond the borders of what you were told, taught, or read within those books given to you in the Nation of Islam, but yet there is this fear. So now look at the irony here. The fear is that if you gain that much knowledge, you have to go and leave the organizational basis that you're a part of. Just because nobody's ever known anyone, let's stick around. Not that he might be the only one, but he's just a public figure and he's got a doctorate to go with it in this particular time period. So that's an irony, like, oh, this guy stuck around with this. So immediately the same people who would otherwise think a guy like that is going to go out into the ether somewhere, join another group, or change his religion, they end up actually becoming his enemy because he stuck around. They're not an enemy, but their jealousy and envy comes into play because they don't know what he knows. And now he's a danger because he's a source of knowledge, which will cause personality. And I'll close on this point. You're dealing in an era of time where knowledge is not important to people anymore. Personality is pushed over knowledge. And this is an American thing. This is an American Negro thing. This is the people who are giving you what's called the news every day. This is something that when you turn on your news program, CNN is running circles around you just like Fox is and all of that. Nobody cares to tell you you should understand this and how do we come to understand this. They just want you to say who is the person that is responsible for this. And it's creating that type of culture. Without knowledge and self-development, you don't start to find out who you are without comparing yourself to somebody else. Yes, the comparison might be a start. Like, oh, wow, Dr. Wesley, wow, I know his life, and he went and got a doctorate. I could do it too. I might have the same situation or whatever. As opposed to, oh, he thinks he knows everything because he's a doctor. That's reflective of my lack of knowledge. So that's across the board. The black male in particular, because the woman is forced to get knowledge now. She's getting it. That, you know, like how the degrees say that that there's these great fields, right, for the wide awake man to work out with. Well, if I was to be satirical, I would say, well, the woman's already out in him and working him. She's just waiting for the man to wake up so he can see how big the field is to get out in. So that fear of education is something that it actually plays a part in the continuation of this argument in the Muslim God thing. But like I said, it's for another day, because the next part of that story will narrow down that it's really right now an individual is being used as an scapegoat so other people can actually hinder their own advancement unknowingly. But it's like making fun of somebody and thinking somehow you're better because you're like, he's got broken legs, he's a faggot, Right. Like, what does it do for you? You know?
I still think people don't like y'all because you make them feel dumb. That's what I think. But we won't open up the call. Fundamentally, when you become God, those individuals who are not being God but think they God start hating because they realize that you God and they ain't being God. So I think it's fundamental in that. That's just honesty on the stuff. Because a lot of these brothers and gods, to your point, understanding, because I hear you, I can understand the contextual, how you understand the word within the context. But what happens when you don't care about the context? If you put Father Allah and we put God in a context through a historical representation as written by Wakeel's book, and then through a scientific and actual fact type of stat, by signified in Dr. Wesley's book, and they don't care about that, then maybe it ain't the context at all. Maybe they just don't know what the word God means. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it could be just a human development thing, right? A person, you have to understand, we do sabotage our own lives. I'm going to throw it out on the table. I'm not one of these people that I don't hide behind any of the culture that I live. I'm just a black man living in America. I know what it is, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm middle-aged, not children. You dig what I'm saying? Every day is like a 15-round fight. Sometimes you get hit in the jaw down on one knee. You just stay here.
Hey, understand, man. But you a 5%er. You a 5%er.
Right, but that's the point I'm making. Now,
these guys are 85.
But hear what I'm saying. But hear what I'm saying. My point with that is the reason I get back up is the 5% reason, because it's not about me. It's about you. I get up every day. I don't just, because she looked at another man and now we're getting a divorce. I don't have that type, because it's not just about me. It's about you. That's the oath that you take unknowingly when you become a Muslim. That's the oath that you take. I'm going to live my life beyond me for the sake of civilization, which is dying. Until Moses' job is done and there are no more 85%ers, that's the sacrifice that the 5%er makes. And maybe that's what people don't know. It's actually a duty.
Right. Yeah. All right, that's real, because the Holy Quran does not contradict us with a brother swearing his allegiance to his brother, so long as he does not break that allegiance. So that's peace. And that's my whole point. Yeah, we got Muslim gods and we got 85er gods. So, want me to open the call a little bit and see what's happening?
Yeah, it's only like 2 more minutes. Go ahead.
This got to be a Skype number because it's all ones. So whoever thinks they call it from Skype, go ahead and speak. Peace. Peace. Anybody calling in from Skype? Peace. All right, we ain't got time for that one. Let's go to the last 4 digits, 2573. 2573. Peace. Go ahead, 2573. Take your phone off of mute. 2573. Come on. Understanding scared him away.
Maybe you just.
What's up?
Maybe you can say that the area code and the last 4 numbers. That's what I usually do, because people should know their number though. But
it's cutting off, my brother, where I can't see the first 3 numbers on this whatever they're giving me.
Okay, pardon yourself. Indeed.
All right, so 2573 is the last 4 digits. If you push 1 on your keypad, you got your hand up. 2573. Go ahead. All right. Let's try this one. Last 4 digits 0333. Go ahead.
Hey, peace to the guys. Can you guys hear me?
Peace. All right,
peace, God. Peace, God.
My question was, as far as having the knowledge of the Muslim God, how do we stay at peace and keep our awareness having this knowledge?
How do we stay at peace? How do we stay at peace having the knowledge of the Muslim gods?
And just being able to stay aware, because it's something powerful, you know?
Indeed, it is powerful. You know, the guys can add on. I would just say, you know, a Muslim is a righteous person. That's an activity. You know, a nigga is as a nigga does. God is as a God does. A Muslim God is as a Muslim God does. You know, you wake up a God. You can go through, you know, lower level, that's your inheritance, right? You are you're born a God.
Yeah.
But in that, in and of itself, doesn't require much activity of you. You're being a dead God, still a God, but you may be a dead God. Righteousness is an activity. Being a Muslim God requires activity. And when you engage in activity, you stay aware. You only fall into unawareness when you're idle, right? We ain't doing nothing, then you get dumb. When we become non-productive, we fall into dumbness. But because the Muslim part of Muslim God is an activity, like the God under described, you know, his day, our day, is a 60-round fight. Being righteous in this world, every day is a 60-round fight. So when you stay in that activity, you can't fall into unawareness because it requires minute-by-minute awareness to do the work of being a Muslim God rather than just being a God.
True.
True indeed,
okay.
God. Indeed.
It's advancements and empowerment towards the Godhead. Simple.
Indeed. It's doing the work of a God is as a God does. A Muslim God is as a Muslim God does. You do the Muslim God thing.
That's right.
Then you will stay aware of the science of the Muslim God.
Of everything in life. That's right.
Indeed. You know, God. Well, this is. I think we've answered brother's question. I wanted to segue into something else and speak on something rather quickly. If brother would.
Yeah, this is my question.
Thank you, beloved.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, dear brother. I think really, God, get into the crux of the matter. I think part of the challenge and the issue that some of the brothers have is that they feel because they see a lot of our activity. I mean, you got to think about it, God. Sometimes that's overwhelming. You know, with this book, you know, we got all kind of books out there. We on the stage with JV. You know, we with all these different people, right? You know what I mean? And a lot of these people getting knowledge self now, kicking the knowledge. A lot of these brothers is with the minister. So it looks like there's this movement going on. And some brothers think that maybe we're trying to, in a sense, take over. You know what I mean? I think that's getting to the crux of the matter. And brothers, I think
we are.
Right. But brothers want to keep the positions that they have. Right, you know what I mean? So I think that's where the issue comes in. It's like a church-type mentality, my church against your church, you know, my congregation against your congregation. And we have to come together in peace. You know, like one of the things about being a Muslim God is that we are never the aggressors, right? We are never the aggressors in anything. You know what I mean? You will never see any of us that went out and aggressed anybody. And I'm not talking about physically. We don't go around doing that, you know, to our own people. But just even verbally speaking, you know, we don't disrespect anyone. We're also on the defensive side. You know, we have to defend the lessons and the knowledge of self and our master teachers, you know, Master Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, the father, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, you know, et cetera, you know, from some of the slander and defamation that people bring. So when they come with that, we come back very hard, you know, and I always tell people that the Muslim gods, they have notoriety, but the reason why they have notoriety, really in a good level, and appear to be always at the helm of something, of a movement, or, the center of the talk, is because they are taking the medicine in accordance with the prescription from Allah and the Messenger. See, this is not things that we have to guess at. So I always tell people that come at me, because I'm often, questioned, right, by critics and whatnot, and I often give them the lessons back real hard, you know what I mean, or give them the teaching of Islam and knowledge of self back real hard, because this is what makes us successful. This is what makes us standouts, if you will. This is what makes us able to walk and talk this mathematics and become examples by Allah's permission. You know what I mean? Because that's who we got the knowledge from, from the decree of Allah as given to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's where this all comes from. And today we're being nurtured and guided by the beautiful, wonderful example of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You know what I mean? So you must
carry out the prescribed law of Islam of set personality.
Right. With that being said, people will always see us take plenty, as Allah said. You have to take plenty when you're out here teaching your people. But we're always about the unity. We're always about the unity. But a lot of brothers,
don't get it twisted, though.
Right. Some brothers don't want to accept that because I think they feel, threatened in a sense. You know what I mean? Or if you come here, then people are going to listen to you. You know what I mean? So I think that the crux of the matter, for me, and I understand it said, God, people say my name or whatever, but that's really a scapegoat because they'll say, okay, well, why do Muslim gods wear the universal flag, right? Which is the 7, the sun, the moon, and stars, because the Muslim gods allegedly, don't teach 5% teachings. But if you look at the 7, the sun, moon, and star, and what it represents and what it symbolizes, you will see in dealing with the 8 points of the star, at least they taught it in the 5% Nation and the 5% Nation of Islam, that those 8 points stand for those 8 lessons, which are the foundation of the teachings. Supreme Math, Supreme Alphabet, Student of Romans, English Lesson C1, Lost Found Muslim Lesson number 1, number 2, the actual facts and the solar facts, which the majority of that information comes directly from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Farad Muhammad. And if you notice, Muslim God brothers and sisters, they never teach contrary to the lesson. We are the embodiment of have you learned that your word shall be bond, regardless of whom or what. And that kind of separates us because we so strong on the 120. We so strong on the lessons. And the 5%ers, God knows we're strong on the lessons, right? And I point that out to people, like understand what's about the chronological order of things. Really, the Muslim gods is really just your standard 5%ers, traditional 5%ers. It's just at one point in time, the institution of the 5% was under attack as far as the lessons and the teachers and everything because of different personalities, etc. So therefore, a lot of brothers and sisters abandoned the fundamental teachings, right? And the Muslim gods for a period of time was holding the torch of those teachings. They endured those trying times. And now within the latter years, a lot of the arguments that were made by the Muslim gods have been adopted by those who fiercely contested with Muslim God at some point in time.
Well,
you know what I mean? So over time, you see the development.
He must be a Muslim scholar. He must be an international thinker, and he must be a worldwide knower. That's the understanding spoke about that, the educational aspect. See, we are the all-wise, true and living. There's no mistake about that. And we can prove it at no different time.
Indeed.
Yes, sure.
And so the science of the flag, like the guy True Islam was saying, that, when you come up in it used to be like that, when you come up in the 5% Nation, you had to learn those lessons. There wasn't nobody running around like they run around today. Oh, these lessons ain't the foundation. Oh, that's a history lesson. That's Elijah teaching. That's Muslim teaching. People wasn't running around like that in my day and time. Because in my day and time, the Father taught it the same way. You had to learn those lessons 100%, word for word. You had to know them by heart. You know what I mean? It was more by memory. You had to have them in your heart. And a lot of God, and like True Islam said, the way he got it from me, that's the way I got it from the 5% Nation. Everything that I'm teaching, God, outside of the advanced understanding, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan opened up our minds to different sciences of Scripture and the time of what must be done. The basic rudimentary aspect of the teachings, the fundamental teachings, That was taught within the 5%. I got that from the 5%. So the love that I have for the Muslims in the Nation of Islam and recognizing them as my Ahlakes, my brothers, I can never be anti-Muslim. You know what I mean? Because that was not the teachings of the 5%ers. You know what I mean? That came about a little later, as a result of different schisms and whatnot. But we are coming full circle now, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote in The Fall of America. We see all these different prophecies are being fulfilled. He manifested to us who was the original man and who was the colored man. So in this day and time, we are really, truly looking for the knowledge equality degree. Who are the 5%ers of this poor part of the planet Earth? And that's what this outreach is about. You know what I mean? And we down with our brothers and sisters. So, we want to clear up any misconceptions and misunderstandings that people have, because we
let me say something about the flag.
Go ahead, God.
Well, just about the flag. Again, when Wakeel born me into the 5%, after God spoke, you have to earn your flag. And they hit you, they say, why do the Muslim guys wear the flag? If I go out, I keep telling y'all can't disqualify me. Y'all had the opportunity to take my flag 20 years ago. If y'all were going to get my flag, y'all were going to get it then. But y'all couldn't get my flag then, so you sure the hell ain't getting it now. See, back then, you had to fight, earn your flag, and fight for it. You tried to take it, you missed. You ain't getting it now. So that's why the Muslim gods wear the flag, because we earn the right to wear the flag.
That
you
is
missed
true.
your chance.
But what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do, God, for the individuals right now who are wearing the flag, who ain't even earned the flag, is not doing the duty of the civilized person? When are we gonna start snatching their flag?
Yeah.
Or should we start snatching them? Because my whole thing is like this, man. If this is the day of separation and this is the day of war and all that diplomatic talk, I'm saying there's going to be so many people infiltrating. They infiltrating the gangs. They infiltrating all type of organizations. These are real agents. And I'm saying it's like in a situation where people are wearing flags, what about the false flaggers who are going to be out doing dirt?
Right.
We come in.
So what I'm saying is, when can we go start snatching their flags? Since they try to snatch their flag, your flag, and they trying to prove that you didn't earn it, how about if we go out and start snatching their flags?
Right. Make them prove.
I mean, show and prove by doing the duty.
Right.
We need to teach. We have to teach. That's elementary, snatching flags. We can't.
Indeed. We all know. We ain't on that.
Let me be serious. I use the term snatching flag metaphorically.
I know.
What I'm saying is
metaphorically,
there's a duty. You call yourself a 5%, and they're saying that we ain't Muslim gods. And so you're going underneath the auspices of saying that you God, and you have the teachings, and you have a duty to be a civilized person. You have a duty to be a 5%er. And what I'm saying is, just as they're checking us and telling us that we ain't Muslim gods, then why can't we go to them now and say, hey man, it's time to show to prove that you God?
Right.
At what point do we, if you wearing that flag, and you have anything that goes to the gangbangers, it goes to the Negroes. It's like, look, man, the minister is calling a call for 10-10, and we got work to do. These white folks is about to come at us. So what I'm saying is you have to challenge individuals, too, and all that peace talk and unity, man, and teaching them. They don't want to. They had a chance to learn. Most of these people we have a problem with, they ain't students. They don't want to be students, so you can't. So what's the answer? Do we ignore them?
I say that. I say this to that. And you're right. I'm glad you cleared it up. We not interested in taking none of y'all flags because, one, we know you didn't earn it because it's a different regime today. Y'all got new sheriffs in town, and y'all do it differently. So we already know most of you didn't earn it. So it's futile to even approach you to try to make you demonstrate your worthiness because that's not your way. We respect that. Our way was our way. Your way is your way. What we're saying is, and that's the whole point, we always let folks do them. There's a Muslim God controversy because folks didn't want to let us do us. Now, we stay doing us. And by Allah's grace, we stay winning. And so, those, we let folks wear whatever symbol
they want to wear. We let folks self-identify as they want to self-identify. See, here's the thing. You never hear us say
That's
that
right.
so-and-so is this or it's not that. We let you self-identify. How dare you say, I'm not a Muslim God? Nigga, speak for yourself. You self-identify and let me self-identify. Right?
That's
so
right.
if you are not a Muslim God, you will never hear me call you a Muslim God. If you want me to call you Hindu God, I would say brother Hindu God. I would say sister Hindu God. However you want to self-identify, I'm going to identify you as that. The point is, none of y'all, no, not y'all, I'm not speaking to anyone, none can qualify or disqualify us. We qualify and disqualify ourselves in the process of show and prove, the process of standing on our square, which was a culture, the 5%, when Wakeel born me into it. The process of self-qualification or disqualification happened just like it did on our way to Steagles that day. You challenged me. I challenge you. You make me prove my bona fides. You make me justify my existence. You make me qualify myself through the degrees. And if I can do so, if I can prove my identity mathematically, all you can do is salute and keep it moving. Do you? I do me. Self-style wisdom. So, Brother Philip, we let them, because we true to that, like Watt said, we true to this. Our word is bond. And so the principle of self-style wisdom, we still maintain that. So we let folks do them. They can do it under the flag. However, we're not interested in that. That's cosmetic. Right. But we're going to keep doing the work of the Muslim gods. We're going to keep being Muslim gods.
Right. And, you know, God, I like to speak on in context to that from a historical perspective, a quote that I often use, you know, with brothers and sisters who identify, you know, as 5% or Nation of Gods and Earth, who feel that the title or word Muslim, you know, has no place within knowledge of self or within their ranks or whatever. You know, and back in the days when I got it, you know, in the 80s, in 1983, you know, Brother Universal Sham God, who is the artist, you know, who actually drew the universal flag of Islam, you know, the 7 sun, moon, and stars, who was the designer of it, per the knowledge and wisdom that was given to him, you know, by the Father Allah. And he quoted in July of 1983 in his Son of Man Digest newspaper, which would deal with different accounts of the Father. He spoke on the context of why the Father decided to take away the Muslim names from the brothers, from the younger brothers, who wasn't able to live up to the definition as prescribed by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And Universal Sham God said in 1983, he said, brothers and sisters, this is one of the reasons the Father told us we could not have Muslim names, so that they would not have to take the weight for the unrighteous actions of our fruit. He taught us that a Muslim is only someone who submits to the will of Allah, so that by nature we are all Muslims, and that it's hard enough being righteous or a Muslim in hell without a bunch of knuckleheads running around on the warpath causing confusion, right? Now, when you take that statement, I'll say to the brothers, you know, is the above teachings from the Father still relevant today? You know, is it still, quote, hard enough being righteous or a Muslim in hell without a bunch of knuckleheads running around on the warpath causing confusion? And I said, you know what? Let me look up that term, knucklehead. Because I heard that Allah, the Father, used that, you know, several times from some of the brothers. And if you look up the term knucklehead, it means a fool, an idiot, a stupid, bumbling, inept person, a word used to express a low opinion of someone's intelligence. So if you look at that, we got to ask ourselves, are we receiving knowledge through the wisdom of Allah, or are we getting it through an interpretation, through what he would define, quote-unquote, knuckleheads? You see what I'm saying? We don't want to be the knuckleheads on the warpath causing confusion. We want to be the righteous, you know what I mean? The righteous gods, or we say the Muslim gods, being civilized and on our square. You know, so that's where we are at with it. So that's why, because I know lately brothers been on this kick that you can't have Arabic names in the 5%, and you can't have a Muslim name. You know, they're going back to saying that again. And of course there were elders with the names, with Muslim names, Arabic names, and of course there were firstborns too that kept their names. But I always point out to brothers, do you know that Allah is an Arabic name?
Right.
You know what I mean? Allah is a Muslim name. So sometimes the obvious is in front of the brothers and sisters, and they just not aware of it. Like I said, these things, some haven't been taught and educated into it. But to Under's point, some know better. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they know better,
but they
still persist.
This Allah's Arabic name. You know, you're absolutely right. That is the trend for God to reject being Muslim God, to reject the name Allah. And I'm saying that is absolutely appropriate. Because remember, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is clear. There's the righteous gods and the evil gods. Only the righteous God, the Muslim God, is Allah. The evil God is not Allah. So if you're not a Muslim God, you're not Allah. If you're not a Muslim God, you are not Allah. Allah said that all the Muslims are Allah.
Right.
Said the Muslims are Allah. So I absolutely am not protesting the trend to assert some gods to disassociate themselves from Allah, because the God who is Allah, the gods who are Allah are specifically the righteous God, the Muslim God.
And do you know who in that case, so much of the unrighteousness really falls on, because there's a lot of victimization going on there, clearly. Because you know, that little point that Wakeel just made, right? Like, you know, that's a simple misnomer, right? You could just pull the wool on somebody with that, and they'd be like, dang, if they never thought of it, right? Or how about if you asked a 5%er who brought that logic to you, and you said, do you believe the white man is the devil? I said, okay, well, you speak the devil's language, but you're in denial of your own language?
Right.
Like, and you're the original man? How do that add up? If he's only here 6,000 years and you're in complete denial that somehow if you adopt your original language, it'll make you a religious person. All those type of things. You could go on and break an individual down. But that's the victimization. There's a wonderful verse, you know, in historical context, you can find it in various places. But in a nutshell, it just simply says they took a portion for themselves. And whenever you take a portion of a thing, that forces you to take other portions of the thing. You can never take the whole thing. So once you 86 yourself out of the running of the Muslim part, then you have to cut all of those parts out, at least as far as how they're applicable to you. Then you can cut out being forced or have to go in accord with the behavior of that title. You know what I'm saying? And then you can cut off the people who are the forerunners to that. And ultimately all you're left with is just some words from some people that you don't honor anymore, knowingly or unknowingly. Again, you either knowingly are, or you're victimized. You're an 85 into that. And so all of those type of scenarios exist. And I think what it is many times is you get people. It's once again, this wouldn't have happened 25 years ago because America wasn't a cynical place. Everybody's cynical and sarcastic and full of rugged individualism now. So people are they don't care about the truth as much as they care about not losing a social group that they have and trying to sound like whatever it is they identify with. It's like almost like people don't believe in higher things, even in themselves anymore. Like I would rather go with this lie, although I don't know it to be truth, but it feels like it might be the truth. It sounds like it's the truth. But I would go this way because the social group is with me. And then you hear this, and I mean, because everyone on this call can identify. Minister Farrakhan says that oftentimes, you can't say what I say. Because if you said it, then you would be all alone. And that, see, all of that, this is, again, like I said, I have to leave all of the peripheral language out. It's just man. You know, I had dinner the other night with an Igbo man. And he knows who he is. He knows his lineage, his history, his culture, his landmass, right? And he said something to me that was powerful. He dropped the creation history. I wanted to ask him if what I read was true. So he had dropped me the creation history of the Igbo people, right? And in a nutshell, he simply said that God had created everything, right? And then he sent a man down, and the man complained and said, "There's water everywhere. Everything's covered in water." And so he sent down a blacksmith, and the blacksmith formed the earth, right? Made the hills and the shapes and valleys and rivers and lakes and landmass. And then he told the man, he said, "Now that I have done this, you know that I did not make you by accident. You are here for a purpose. You owe me." He immediately let me know right then and there, right? Man is a debtor, right, to his creator. He owes his creator just on the mere fact, not because he didn't give himself life, but he's in debt because God made him for a higher purpose. He didn't. It wasn't like an act of just vanity. And then the man said something, and I'll leave the expletives out, but he went away from his culture and he said, "So you need to look in the mirror and find out who you are, and what are you going to do with the part that owes your creator." And that's part of man's journey. However he sciences it up, whatever he comes to, and if man doesn't have the guts to admit that to himself, he damn sure ain't going to admit it to his friends. Like, we can leave this whole black man God thing alone. Black man is dying of AIDS every day still just because he won't have a conversation. It's just the actual fact. Every day these numbers, just like that stuff done shifted from black women to now it's black men practicing homosexual sex. And people acting like it's a Young Jock song, like, "Oh, no, we already did that. That happened. We don't listen to that no more." But yet people still dying from the song. So that tells you something about the mentality and the stubbornness and the inability to humanize ourselves. One of the things, and I reflect on this deeply among my friends, in fact, one of my closest friends and I were sitting in the park in New York yesterday, and he brought tears in my eyes saying this. And I said, if it was not for the friends that I had, who we're 5%, it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deep in a car that only sits 4, listening to music and quoting all the lyrics together in the lessons, that's what humanized me. So you kind of are made or break by that group. And in an era of rugged individualism, many of these kids, even though they're peers of one another, they basically are looking at one or two key figures, and then they're kind of on their own. And they would say, well, should I take the truth and be all alone and lose my social group and lose this place that I could go to every day or whatever? And those people that do that, I mean, their hardcore 5% is on a different level. Because, I mean, that's a lonely path in your developmental stage.
That's peace. We got any other callers?
Right now, let me try this one, my brother. Last 4 digits, 7661. 7661. Peace.
Peace, God. Can you hear me?
Peace, God.
Peace,
so
Lord.
indeed.
All right, how you doing? My name is Brother Buddha Ali. I'm with the study group in Texarkana, Texas.
That's what's up, bro. Let me get it right, Brother Buddha Ali.
Yeah, Buddha Ali.
Peace to the black God, Buddha Ali.
Appreciate you. Hey, man, I've been listening, man. I've been taking it all in. I'm just a student, man, listening. My uncle was a member of the Asar Allah community down there in Bushwick Avenue back in the 70s. He loved me a lot of study books. And I read all the Quran, and I studied with Captain James Muhammad with the FOI, him and Brother Michael X in Texarkana. I'm just listening to the show, just taking it all in, man. I appreciate it. I'm just letting y'all know I was listening to everything y'all saying, man. I appreciate the light in this dark world.
That's what's up. Hey, I'm interested, man. Can you give us a little bit about your name, Buddha Ali? Did you take that name yourself? Were you born with the name?
Yeah, I took the name myself. Well, they call me Buddha. I was in the martial arts at a young age, and I was always, into the black movement and the Public Enemy, the X-Clan, everything. So I've been Buddha Ali since 91. I got converted from into Islam in 99 by Brother Cedric Muhammad, a lawyer in Houston, Texas. Cedric Muhammad brought me all the way through. and I just been studying ever since.
That's what's up. I asked because, you know, it's hard to go out to Mother Buddha. That was a black god, and I respect that black god. And we mentioned earlier, see, I have, as a Muslim God, I have no problem with your self-identification, Brother Buddha Ali. You know, the irony is, among those who would deny us the right to self-identify as Muslim God, saying you can't be a 5% or be a Muslim God, but you could be a Buddha God. And you should be, because Buddha was a God. Buddha was a black God. And we respect that God. But, see, Islam is the science of everything in life. Islam is universalism. The problem is, you know, there are those who acknowledge that Islam is the science of everything in life. And so every cipher, we can go up in every cipher and make it do what it do for this Islam.
That's right.
There's not a cipher that we as God can step in and identify the Islamic root of it. And when gods do it, and if they localize their identity to that, like Wu-Tang localize their identity to the Buddhist science or the Eastern science, the Asian science, that's all appropriate. The problem is when everybody has license to localize themselves in any way they want, but we can localize ourselves as specifically Muslim gods, righteous gods. And that's been at the heart of the controversy over the Muslim gods, not us trying to impose our identity on others. It's others presuming to disallow us to self-identify as who we be.
Right.
I salute you, Buddha Ali.
I salute y'all too, man. I picked up Tariq Bey from the Moore Science Temple. I seen they were advertising this the Lines of Allah radio, and I just clicked on it.
Oh, true indeed, God. Peace. Thank you for adding on.
Indeed.
Yes, sir.
Peace to the God.
Peace, Lord. Peace. It's now 11:30. I don't know how long y'all want to build on it, but I think with the brother, what True Islam, what Dr. Wesley Muhammad just manifested. Allahmal, you there, God?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Allahmal, you there? Okay.
Yeah,
I would like. Okay, indeed, God. I would like for you to comment on that, because I know that you do a lot of work out in the field naturally with our beloved brothers and sisters. There at the law school and with different 5% Nation of Gods and Earth throughout the city. And, in hearing what Brother Wesley just said, I would have to concur with him. It's normally not us, and you are aware of this, of course, us not trying to impose anything on anyone, but they want to restrict us from being, who we are in a sense or whatever, certain segments of that community. So how could we overcome that aspect with them? Do you see any promise in brothers allowing gods to be gods in self-styled wisdom, or do you feel that it would always be perhaps an issue, just because of the fact that we acknowledge ourselves as Muslim?
Well, as
like
you know, God, for the past, since the 16th anniversary of the Million Man March, I've been trying to bring the two ciphers together, and they wanted to have a private meeting with the minister. And the minister himself would like to see that come to fruition. And I think that my work with the 5% brothers, the NGE, I have no problem. For some reason, I'm accepted by the elders that is living the life of Muslims. That's basically the cipher that I hang out with. But I think that it can come to pass. It has to come to pass. That's one of the things that I continuously is going to strive to accomplish. I'm never going to give up. There's certain things that we all take on, and that's one of the things that I decided that I would, do. And I've been working at it. And I have a good relationship with those that, quote unquote, run the schools. You got the brothers in the early time of the day, and the brothers like I'll be in the afternoon, in the evening times. we get along. You know, we have no problem with one another. And I think these things can, you know, we can have that meeting. Born Justice and Hakeem came to the leadership meeting Saturday just passed at the Harlem State Building. You know, so we're still looking to, you know, put that together. And I will continue to see what we can do to build together. You know, everyone can remain himself, but it's a matter that we have, you know, that's why I was saying at the beginning of the show, you know, the peace aspect has to come together. You and I is the only thing that's going to make us successful. We have to have that determination, you know, and turn Yakub history around and be successful in all of our undertakings. Like I mentioned, you know, being Muslim scholars, you know, we are the scientists. You know, we have to, you know, we're the advanced God. Muslim God is advanced. He has to show and prove that he's advanced. You know, not saying that we are advanced over all of the, you know, rest of the God, but we can show and prove our scholarship, you know, our wisdom of knowing 120 and above. To me, like I tell the guys, there's a foundation, you know, and then you build from that. You take the 120 and you build on it. So we're going to continue to build. I love the God, understanding our love. That God is super bright. You know, I listen to the God, you know, and I have much respect and love for him because he knows the history, you know, and I like to just be a student to your brothers because you're Dr. Wesley, True Islam, Wakeel, Brother Philip, or, you know, oh, wow. I'm around,
it's mutual, Black God. It's mutual.
You know, I love you all,
you know,
because you all doing work.
Indeed, love you too, great God. You know, one of the things that you said, God, that I have to speak on, you know, because I noticed and understanding, you know, was getting at this. You know, you will find that brothers are very selective in who they build with, you know, and we've created this personality culture, right? And I have to let the public know, you know, that if there is any divisiveness or any lack of unity, for sure, it is not on our end. You know what I mean? We just got to tell the truth. I just got to tell the truth on that. And my name is one of the most spoken names out there, right? In the 5% for various reasons, right? And it's so damn ludicrous. You know what I mean? People use my name, you know what I mean, to draw in folks and, you know, to get a name off my name. That's one of the oldest tricks in the game with some of these brothers. You know what I mean? And that has to stop. You know what I mean? That period. That has to stop. They need to take my name out their mouth.
I question, you know, when I go by, I ask them, I said, listen, what is the problem? Let's sit down and deal with the problem. If you have an issue, I'll be the person to be the in-between individual. And we can deal with that. You know, there's some things that he got to correct in the book and so and so and so. So I said, well, if you prove him wrong, then he'll have to apologize and change it. It's simple as that. That was my word. And I hope that he'll accept my word because that's what I told him.
Indeed. So let me add on to that. Let me add on to that because I'm glad we're here. This is important. And you see, Under made the point of the flip-flopping, where at the beginning of this Muslim God controversy, True Islam, me, was persona non grata, was the one that nobody liked. And they were cool with Wakeel. Now, look, now, it flip-flops so much. Look, Wak is absolutely right. The acrimony, if there's hostility, if there's a lack of unity, it is not because we have not tried to engineer unity. Specifically, Wakeel. Wakeel has put in righteous effort to be at peace. He wrote books. Wakeel is not an asshole. He never has. That's not in his nature. He don't deal with people like that.
That's right.
Of these Wonder Twins, I'm an asshole.
And in a relationship with these, I'm the one that's anal. I'm the one that says stuff to get folks mad at me.
I ain't no asshole.
What? Well, that's debatable. But Wakeel has been Farrakhan in this process.
Yeah.
Wakeel has been Farrakhan in this process, meaning he has taken much and didn't give it. I'm the one on the side that got little patience, and I throw my elbows. But the irony is they are willing to work with me, right? You got they take a picture with me, but they won't take a picture with Wakeel. Because Wakeel did something. He wrote a Pelican Brief. Y'all see that movie Pelican Brief?
Yeah.
Go get that movie. Wakeel's history was a Pelican Brief. Because it exposed so much of the fabricated mythology that was fabricated over time that obscured the true history of the 5% nation. That is Wakeel's original and eternal sin. So it doesn't matter how righteous he has been, how much of a Muslim God he has been in his dealings with those who take issue. They hate him. So they have a quasi-love and respect for me, but I'm the asshole in this thing. I don't have the patience Wakeel has. He's the Jesus, I'm the Peter. And, I got to come up to his level. Yet they would take a picture with me, but won't take a picture with Wakeel.
And don't know why, most of them.
Right.
Because the reason have changed. That's how you know he, to use your phrase, persona non grata, is because the reason it'll change as quick as spring weather. Right. It's been you could go on a list and it would go around in circles like toilet paper. That thing has been from the problem is he's not from New York to he's from Plainfield to from saying he never was from Plainfield to saying he wouldn't know because he was in a lost garden to saying he wouldn't know because he's Muslim, saying because we don't know your tree back to the father, saying that because you're Muslim. And you go on and on and on, and you'll never have anyone. I just want you to think about this. Think about this societally. Don't think about it within the confines of the nation or the group you're in. Think about it societally of anyone in any subject matter that you would keep on saying, like it's like saying Jay-Z suck, right? But it's not that you just say he sucks. You got no one in your group who you're saying he sucks that even says, yeah, but it just rhymes good. Imagine if nobody in your group said, well, is it wrong? Is what he wrote wrong? Or, I know we don't like him and he's our enemy, but he cited every single source that he wrote. So we can't even blame this guy. So you can see that there was a conspiracy, and that's why nothing works. That's why nothing matters. That's why everyone who ever comes and extends their hand, they extend their hand because it's logical that there's clearly no problem. There's clearly no reason they're not like it, and then they're pulled back, which shows that they're cowards. Yes, I'm calling you a coward. Right. You're a coward because you knew that the person was clearly not a problem, and you already could prove that with knowledge and in your heart, and you still went back for your social group. So you're a coward. That's okay, but you're a coward. And that's a fact. And that's why nothing will ever end, because he is the piece. If it was some sort of weird chess game that, well, my only problem is this person, that shows you that's like what the Jews do, or a segment of the Jews do to Minister Farrakhan. It means that they don't have any intention to solve the problem. And that's how you can always tell, just like when you're dealing with children. You can always tell when a child just wants to keep on creating the problem and talking about the problem and not solving the problem because of the way that they deal with the particular issue and will never let it go. There's no form of compromise. There's not even the willingness to sit down. It's like, oh, he's a liar? Okay, well, we said we'd sit down. We're in town. Let's sit down and talk about it. No, we can't do that. And there's not, like, can you imagine being a part of a group of people that feel that way, yet there's not even one from amongst to look within the group and say, we look kind of stupid. Like, we're saying we're greater than them because God is greater than Muslim, and we actually won't challenge him, but we call him out in the form of a challenge. And that's the exact same thing that segment of Jews do to Minister Farrakhan. But they stay unified, so they deal with the good old boy adage, I lie, you swear, and we good.
Right.
But these guys don't even have no real organization because there's actually no end game. All they know is that they just supposed to hate him on GP because he wrote a book. And the sad part is, and I'm saying this because it goes to the heart of the black man, you could go to any of these cities in America and these kids got the book in their backpack and then they duffel bags at the rallies and be referring to it and talking about things that they knew nothing about 5% history that they got right out of the book, and they'll talk like as if they're citing the sources, right, of the people that are cited in the book without even acknowledging his existence at all. And this, and I'm saying this because if you're in the listening audience, I mean, whether you agree, disagree, believe or not believe, you're talking about a teaching that the fundamental basis of the black man is God is a white man and devil. The white man came amongst them. I would give you a classic story, and I'll shut up. When Wakeel wrote his book, the Allah team put that book out. That was all with blood, sweat, and tears from within. There's no pension fund. There's no backing or whatever. And immediately they said, oh, well, you're not giving charity. You should give the books away and this and that. Now, the work itself was a work of charity. And even despite that, Wakeel still gave many of the books away, including to Allahmal or whatever. But this white boy comes along who already had a long track record of writing satirical articles on Islam, satirical, by the way, which obviously cats didn't understand what satire was because they was about to get played, who had a publishing deal from the largest publisher on the planet Earth, Oxford Press. And he gets back and writes a book on the 5%ers on the things that they accused Wakeel of that he never said, the taboo subject matter, and he was welcomed with open arms. Now, I mean, I'm no
the white boy
like the
was welcomed with open arms.
That's right. White boys were.
Right, I know your language. I want them to understand what the white boy was open.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right. The white author, Michael Muhammad Knight, was welcomed with open arms into the 5%.
Okay, I'm sorry. The white
cipher.
author. You're right. My immaturity again.
Yeah.
My
but
Peter.
He was welcome. Right. Yes, sir. Well, that's okay because Blaine Gretzky got to have somebody black for him. But
yes, sir. And take the sword out and chop the ear off.
That's right. Yes, sir. So he was allowed with open arms to come in the cipher, even though he had never proved himself, even though he had no history. And I even take it one step further. He's not even from, like, Wakeel is a black man in America. That's a pretty amazing feat that nobody had even written any more than a few pages ever on the 5%. In fact, when the book was getting ready to come out, many skeptical 5%ers had already tried to predict, it couldn't be more than like 33 pages or something like that, because even they didn't know any more history than that. So the volume just stumped people. But this man, Michael Muhammad Knight, was able to write and come amongst the people and was open free, and he was never challenged or whatever. And all of the things that were the problem with Wakeel, he's taking money from the nation, or he's trying to bribe the nation with the money he gets from the book, or he's not giving the books away. This guy had a backing from a publishing company, his own money he living off of. And let me say this, he took the money from that book, went around America in a van with a picture of the father on the outside, the father-in-law, Clarence 13X, and Master Fard Muhammad in the inside window, and was going around wearing 5% shirts, and he was doing seminars for the federal government, for the FBI, on Islamic terrorism, Islamic extremism, Islamic groups in the United States and whatnot. Well, he's satirizing and making fun of and he's still accepted with open arms within the cipher. The only reason that he ever got ran out was because he finally proved who he was, because he disrespected somebody that they worship as a personality more than they worshipped him. And when it came down to that person or him, then they finally put him out of the cipher. But clearly, that type of mentality that says, well, we would throw one of our own in the garbage, who has never been proved to be distrustful, for somebody who we don't know at all, who we allow, that's somebody that has to admit with the root cause that we hate black more than we hate white.
Right. Absolutely.
And above that, because it's deep, I want to say this. If you in the listening audience really want to understand why Wakeel Allah is hated in the 5% or NGE cipher more than anybody else, go get that movie Pelican Brief. You will understand why Wakeel is hated, and regardless of the good he has done and the peaceableness with which he has dealt with this situation, he's treated as the ultimate enemy. If you get the movie Pelican Brief, you will understand that. Because Wakeel's book, the publication of his book, was tantamount or equal to that Pelican Brief in that movie.
Let's try one more call, my brother. I have one more call here, and hopefully this is the brother. Go ahead, Brother Mills. That's you? Your line is open.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I opened you up before. You must have been on mute, brother. Peace. Go ahead, God.
Oh, peace. This has to have been one of the greatest, if not the greatest show I ever heard in Blog Talk. It was respectful. It was informative.
Oh, peace to the God.
Peace to the It really was, because I've been in this Blog Talk world for about 5 or 6 years, and you hear people screaming and yelling and talking over each other. There was some decorum and there was some protocol, and I extended special greetings to all the brothers who conducted themselves as the Muslim gods they are.
We appreciate you, Lord.
I appreciate you all, and especially being in the mountains up here by myself. So it's just so good to connect with some wise men. Briefly, my question is, at what point, chronologically speaking, did the nation of, at one time it was called the 5% Nation of Islam, when did they lose that title and become the nation of gods and earth? And do you know what the reasoning behind that disconnect was? Because I think at one time, historically speaking, there was a nation called the 5% Nation of Islam. Do they still exist, or are they separate from the NGE, from the nation of gods and earth? Can anybody address that issue for me?
Well, yeah, the expert, we happen to have a resident expert on that subject. Wow. He wrote the book on it. Wow, you there?
Indeed. Can y'all hear me? Indeed. So I would say, guys, this is the fault what True Islam said when the other brother called in, relating to, one is defined through their activity, And if you looked at the father, historically speaking, what he came to establish was the 5%ers. That was the descriptive term that he took from the lessons to identify the cipher of brothers, But the nation has always been the nation of Islam, per the lessons that has no beginning or ending. We are older than the sun, the moon, and stars. The nation of Islam is all wise and does everything right and exact. That is the name of the nation. Brothers give it descriptive terms to say the 5% nation of Islam to show that conjunction, you know what I mean, that the two is basically one and the same. You don't understand knowledge itself or your lessons. But we had various different titles that described what we were about. 5% is, Nation of Islam, gods and earth. And in the 90s is really when brothers really decided that they wanted a name change. You know what I mean? In 1987, you saw, like I said, the 5% in the Word newspaper had just come out. That was the first quote-unquote tabloid newspaper to come out. You know what I mean? Of that status. And one of the things that the brothers decided to do in trying to give direction to the cipher is to try to throw off the term 5%, because it had a negative stigma for some. They wanted to start off fresh and new, and they came up with the term, nation of gods and earth. But what made it, why it's so controversial today, one is because that's why the Muslim God became controversial, because we pointed that out, that we were the 5%ers, and people argued this up and down, that was never the term. You know what I mean? That we was never the 5% nation. We debated not elders that was with Allah, but, the people that was running the schools at the time. It was an all-out debate. Yeah, they wasn't hearing that 5% talk. So when brothers came up with the term Nation of Gods and Earth, the way they introduced it was through an article or a plus lesson, right, called The Greatest Story Never Told. And that is when, at that point in time, is when there was a paradigm shift in the 5%ers that went away from the lessons to basically following the cult personality of the Father Allah, you know what I mean, which came about 20 years posthumously, you know, after his death, you know, what I call today, you know, from a technical standpoint, like Father Allahism, you know, what do you say? We follow what he said. Whatever he said, did the Father, you know, that's all you hear today from a lot of brothers and sisters who embrace, you know, Nation of Gods and Earth to 5% or whatever. But when it was written in that article, it said that the Father said, this came about in 87, but it didn't get popular until maybe 91, 92, 93, that the Father said, after I die, you know, this is allegedly an event that happened in 1967 or 68 or 69, depending on who you believe. The Father called the firstborns and let everybody know that after I die, you know, you will no longer be, you know, the 5%. You will be the nation of gods and earth, not the nation of Islam. So this posthumous quote, you know, which, you know, I just got to tell the truth, it's a fabricated quote. It's just fabricated, you know, because the brothers were trying to take on a new name, and they felt that, you know, okay, we could put that in the mouth of the Father, and then people will follow it. Of course, you know, like Understanding said, you know, that's what people do. They look at the leadership, so we resurrect the Father Allah in whatever image, and brothers went with that, and there was a concerted effort on both staffs of the Word newspaper and the 5% newspaper to exclusively use the term Nation of Gods and Earth, you know, so that term would catch on. Because, like Understanding was saying, at that time, we didn't really have a quote-unquote Mecca that people worship, because we all had knowledge of self in the streets of New York, New Jersey. You know, I didn't have to go travel any miles to see some great grand poobah or something that would, you know, would verify who I was. You know what I mean? No, that wasn't the case. It was all a local thing, because we were young people. We were in middle school together. We were in high school together, so it was a neighborhood thing. We all knew one another, so we didn't have to go through that, you know. But when this knowledge started reaching outside of New York City through, you know, people saw the Wu-Tang videos, Brand Nubian videos, and they made their Hajj to Mecca, and it was these same brothers, you know, who taught and educated them what they wanted to educate them, and they told them that they were the nation of gods and earth, not the 5%. So at the same time, you had the Allah team or the Muslim gods raising hell out here in the streets saying, we are the 5%. Who is the 5%? For quoting lessons and everything else. And they're like, oh, well, them lessons, history lessons, those are Muslim lessons. So that was a big debate, and we just stuck with the 5% thing. You know what I mean? We didn't get that up. And that's why we're here today, you know. But people that took on the term Nation of Gods and Earth, and people don't understand is that a teaching came with that too. You know, it was a paradigm shift with that. And which many of us that was in Allah's garden, even the brothers that contested to Islam in the history that he gave earlier about holding down on his flag, we all had came up in the 5% nation, what was called the 5% nation. Then that became non grata, you know, in the late 90s, in the 2000s. And a lot of people want to deny that today, but they're not honest if they're denying that. That's just the truth. You know, it's pretty documentation. It's in my book. That was all well documented, you know. So that's how it came about. And now it's coming back full circle. Now, brothers, because of the arguments, brothers is coming back to the original universal flag that the Father Allah had and ordained, that people, you know, that was non grata to people. They, you know, if you wore that, they want to debate you about that. Now people coming back to the lessons, you know, they coming back to the term 5%ers. And these was all national debates and public debates, you know, that we had, the Muslim God had with brothers that contested, you know, the history of the traditional teachings, you know, but it's still not all the way right, you know what I mean, because it's the anti-Muslim thing that's the last obstacle, you know what I mean, to overcome, you know, in the proper respect of Master Muhammad and Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, in the Nation of Islam and the lessons of the knowledge of self in general, you know what I mean, that's kind of where we're at with it right now, but that's how the term became popular. It became popular through the media and the social media, the brothers that was over the internet at the time, you know, they didn't come up in a 5% nation like we did, you know, so they didn't know. So they debated us on the whole 5% thing and said we was wrong, because at the time the school was saying that there wasn't 5%ers, you know, the brother that was over in school at the time that had the influence. And we just stuck to it.
He didn't like us.
Right, and today it's still a thing, you know what I mean? It's still, for certain brothers that hold on to that know the history, it's still an issue. because they think that and they're right, we did influence that. People are saying 5% today, large in part, because I put that on my book, The History of the 5 Percenters. This is the 5 Percenters Forum show. All that's by design. I wasn't about to let what the father did die. That's where they got it twisted and wrong. So some look at that and be like, oh, that's why they kind of single me out. You know what I mean? And they use stuff like Clarence 13X and all that. Back then, brother, people understood the father was put in Clarence 13X, the father, Allah, all these things. He wasn't like no square type individual. You know what I mean? He was a very,
Wakeel Allah is among the greatest sons the father ever produced.
You know what? God, true Islam, I'm a humble God, but I will say this.
Right, that's why I have to say.
Look, I will say this. And I meant to say this with Shabay when he was on it, because Shabay said, and I heard this before, but Shabay said when he was with Allah's family, Queen Mother Dora, who know it, that's her husband. Right. And she said to him, no, I wasn't there. He was there, him and other brothers. But she said to him, of all who got it right, it was him, Wakeel. That's the one who got it right. Of
that's
all
real
people.
talk.
You know what I mean? She told me this in my face too. But, and I felt good about that because I wanted to vindicate, not myself, but I wanted to vindicate the father and the 5%. And, saying that causes more jealousy and envy for some people, but now you got to speak on the truth. You know what I mean?
You did.
So, and I will say, all of what I presented, like I said, God, it don't come from me. These are things that was already out there. You know what I mean? Right. I just was willing to stand up and tell the truth, regardless to whom or what, because word is bond, regardless to whom or what. We're the Muslim gods. That's how we got it. Have you learned that your word shall be bond, regardless to whom or what? That's our teaching. That's what we do. But that's how it came about, God. And and again, I don't put people on blast for calling themselves Nation of Gods. You call whatever you whatever you want.
Wakeel.
Anything you want.
Wakeel. In closing, God, do you feel as though too much emphasis and energy has been given to this subject in light of more serious issues like police brutality,
absolutely,
teenage unwed mothers, and other issues, black on black crime? Do you feel as though too much emphasis has been given to this subject when at the end of the day, some people are just never going to come over to the other side of understanding? They're going to always remain where they're at.
Right. I agree, God, 100%. And that's why we on this tour and building on, justice or else. We building on the economic blueprint. We're building on the time and what must be done. Because the lessons, the Father came to unite the seas. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad came to unite our people as one righteous nation. You know what I mean? Regardless of these different trivial religious issues that some advocate, at the end of the day, it's all about our unity, God. So that should be the focus. But I will say this is a deterrent, because what they are trying to do, because of what I was going to say, to starting off, we got to understand the hidden hand behind all this. Before I got cut off, the hidden hand behind all this is the slave master. You know what I mean? The slave master of children, and dealing also with the government and things of that nature, and how, if you look at the COINTELPRO, they always came against the 5%. This is one of the things that they use, slander and defamation of character. We know the different tricks that they employ. You know what I mean? So when people come at us, we take it seriously because we know and understand that what they are attempting to do is trying to thwart our influence on our people. And like True Islam and just anybody else, there's nobody out there, God, I don't even think, on the damn planet that can say that I told them anything wrong, to do anything wrong ever, God. You know what I mean? I haven't wronged any of these people, God. And that's why you don't see anybody coming out outrightly saying, oh, he did this, he did that. And nobody go on record, none of that. And I'm one of the most public 5%ers in building outside of an entertainer on all this. And I make myself available, and you don't see any of these people making themselves available. You know what I mean? And that's the nature of slander and defamation. You know what I mean?